Everyone, sorry for that slight delay with a wee bit hiccup with the technology there. I'd like to welcome you all here today. It's a full agenda we have, so we'll try and make sure that we get through it as quick as possible. I think there's 2 or 3 things at the start I've asked. I think there's general consensus with some of the exceptional circumstances and achievements we've had this last 2 or 3 weeks, so I would like to take this opportunity to pay tribute to the great team effort of everyone involved in helping to clear roads, restore power, and care for others across the region last weekend. We have invested in our community resilience teams, and this has certainly paid dividends on this occasion. In addition to all the local people and volunteers, we must also thank our partners in the emergency services and all the other public and community organisations for their hard work. In the words of the Free Press, and I'm told it's about the first time we've had good comment on that, we acted above and beyond the call of duty. And I would echo those words and praise everyone for their outstanding efforts. Councillor, I think everyone is of that opinion. Right. Councillor Nicholson, you wish to come in?
Thank you, Leader. Can also echo the sentiments you've just made there, and thanking all the workers from the Council, the police, the energy companies and many others who worked around the clock and block down roads. I particularly want to pay tribute as well, and as you have highlighted, the many ordinary members of the public who went to extraordinary lengths during that time. I'm also pleased that, as you as a leader has agreed to my request to discuss holding a civic reception for Queen of the South, and obviously also the Scottish Women's World Curling team. 6 seems to be a lucky number for Dumfries and Galloway, 6-5 for Team Scotland and 6-0 for Queens. For Queens to secure the league when it's only March, it's a great achievement, and coming in the back of the Team Scotland fantastic victory in the World Curling Championship earlier this week, it's a great boost for Dumfries and Galloway. And it's only fitting that after a tough week, as you have mentioned, for many people across the region, the Council plays its part in agreeing to celebrate some positive news by formally recognising both Queen's and Scottish Women's Curling team. Brilliant success.
Councillor Maitland.
Well, I think my suggestion actually about congratulating the women's curling team has slightly been taken. However, I want to add my congratulations, because actual fact it's about focus and determination in whatever field that you are involved in, and people who get to the dizzy tops of their sport and their profession should be admired, but so equally should those people who go out and work on a daily basis. And I know, because I took the very sensible decision of going to a family wedding in Hertfordshire over the weekend, and when I came back, I realised what had gone on, and it was absolutely astonishing. So congratulations to the staff, and particularly congratulations to our sportswomen and our local heroine, Vicky Adams, who is the ladies' world curling champion. So thank you.
And Councillor Collins.
Thanks very much, Leader. I again would like to add my congratulations and echo the sentiments already expressed regarding the community working that was demonstrated so ably over the weekend in terms of assisting and supporting those who were in need of that support and assistance, and clearing our routes for the emergency services and others, and complementing that necessary support. As Civic Head, I would be only too happy to see the recognition of Queen of the South and Ladies Curling being recognised in that light. Thank you.
Councillor McKee.
Thanks, Chair. I agree with every word that's been said, but when we're looking at recognition, there are another 3 that I'd like to draw to your attention when it comes to civic reception. There's been a terrific achievement by the ice hockey Solly Sharks this season. My understanding, they've won their league and they've won a number of trophies. The synchronised skating teams just last week, between the three teams, they won 5 gold and 1 silver medal. And one of the medals they did win, or trophies they did win, was the International Skating Union. They're the first team in Scotland, if not Britain, to have won a trophy in the International Skating Union. And we've also got a number of people who were curling. They spent 70 odd hours on ice and broke the world record for the curling. So we've got a lot to be proud of in Dumfries and Galloway. And how we recognise everybody, I just don't know. But I've no disagreement with anything that's been said before us.
Well, I think there is a case that we need to recognise all our sportsmen and all the efforts that everybody puts in across the region to make Dumfries and Galloway the place it is to live in. I was wondering if we could, with the likes of the sports, there was an achievements award that the sport division had, and if we could actually ask them to look at who would meet the criteria for that, if we could delegate that and we could ask for a reception to bring all our sporting stars along. Be happy with that? Right. As members will see, we have a very full agenda. There are items relating to police and fire which require to be submitted to the Council in the run-up to the police and fire reform. It would be my intention to make a statement regarding the excellent services which have been provided by both Dumfries and Galloway Constabulary and Dumfries and Galloway Fire and Rescue Service at the conclusion of the public part of this meeting. There are also reports on equal pay inequalities which require Council approval by the 1st of April, and I have no questions on any of the minutes, so they are submitted for approval or noting as appropriate. There have been 2 items circulated which were not included in first agenda circulated. First is the minute of our last meeting, which is detailed as item 85, and it would be my intention to bring that forward as the first substantive item to be considered in accordance with Standing Order 9.1. The second is an item for homologation relating to consultation on the draft strategic police plan, and I intend to take it at the conclusion of the meeting before we determine if we are going to exclude the public. It is also my intention that items 6 and 7 on the agenda should be taken in reverse order. I have one additional item, which is a late notice of motion regarding the announced closure of Delegation Care Home, Langham, which I intend to take as an urgent item as the last item in the public part of the meeting. Item 84 on the agenda is recommended as an exempt item of business. The paper has been prepared and will be circulated to members before we adopt the resolution to exclude the public, together with a report on Delegation. There will thereupon be a recess to enable members to consider their reports, and on reconvening, we will firstly deal with the item on Delegation, secondly determine whether the last item should be taken in camera, and thirdly deal with the substantive issues in the report. I will now proceed with the business. We'll take item 1, which is Sederunt, and apologies.
Thank you, Leader. I have 3 apologies from Councillors Carson, Geddes and Wiper.
No other apologies. Item 2, declarations of interest. Councillor Blake.
Item 17, due to my police involvement in the miners' dispute.
Right, I'll start this way. If you keep your hands up, because there's a few hands up. Councillor Gilroy.
It's item 19, the private landlord one. I think it's a procedural agenda item, so I don't think we have to leave, but I would like to declare an interest in the fact that I am a private landlord.
I'll take Councillor Bell. Councillor McClung.
Item 17, former employment.
Councillor Ferguson.
Item 17 for 2 reasons. One, I'm a member of Unite the Union, which is one of the co-signatories, but 2, I was also employed by the City of Glasgow Police during the strike. Fortunately, we didn't have any mines in Govan.
Councillor Wood.
Item 19, private landlord, and I wish not to be leaving.
Councillor McComb.
Item 7, I've got a near relative who is in receipt of social care.
Councillor Peacock.
Thank you. Item 6, I have a relative in receipt of DLA payments. And also item 19, I am a registered landlord. I've taken governance advice and been advised that I do not leave the chamber.
Councillor Nicholl.
Item 19, social landlord, landlord registration, and I'm registered this time.
Councillor Nicholson.
Again, it's number 19 in private landlords. I'm a landlord and I will be leaving. I'll declare an interest and will leave the room at this. I don't think it's appropriate to stay.
Councillor Syme. Councillor Dempster.
19, Chair. I'm a private landlord.
Councillor McCutcheon.
Item 6, Chair. I have a relative that's DVLA social work here.
Councillor Collins.
Item 20, Chair, I'll exclude myself from consideration of funding for the Scottish National War Memorial, since I'm a member of the board.
Right. With that, we'll move on to item 3, local policing plan. Oh, 2A. Wait a minute. Yeah. Jumped in between papers here. Right. Item 2A, sorry, which was the minute of meeting on 7th of February, which is in the additional papers badged up as item 85. I would move that this is a correct record. We've got a seconder. Just waiting to get to the page.
Perfect. Second.
Question. Item 3, local policing plan, report by Chief Superintendent Galloway. This paper was circulated with a separate bundle of papers on 22nd of March 2013 and asked members to approve and endorse the interim local policing plan. The plan has already been considered by the Police, Fire and Rescue Committee on 21st of March 2013, which is why it was circulated after the main body of the papers. The plan was well received by the committee and is before us for full council scrutiny. I would welcome Superintendent Graham Galloway to the meeting, and on behalf of the council, we I'm going to take that bit out because Kate was meant to be here.
She is here.
So I would like to take this opportunity as Chief Superintendent Kate Thompson is here to congratulate her on the appointment to the post of Dumfries and Galloway Local Police Commander. I am sure that we all look forward to working with Kate and ensuring that the excellent police services in Dumfries and Galloway continues. That's quite quick on my feet there, wasn't it? Nobody noticed the deliberate mistake. Superintendent, do you have anything to add to your report?
Sorry, we have taken the plan to the PFRC, the Pathfinder Group, the 4 area committees and the Community Planning Partnership, and we have incorporated any comments that were made as a result of these consultations within the final plan, which is presented before you.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Chair. It was just a quick question about ongoing scrutiny arrangements for members of the Council. I understand there may be a different reporting system that's going to be used, and will members get sufficient training in this so that they know what data they're looking at and how to scrutinise that?
Yes, there's certainly a plan within the papers to bring an expert down in relation to the ongoing scrutiny and the new arrangements that exist as a result of the Police and Fire Reform Act.
Councillor Ogilvie.
Thanks, Chair. Just to welcome this report. As Superintendent said, it's been round the houses and we've formally moved it for recommendation to this committee. Just wanted to say that it will be a sad day when Dumfries and Galloway stops on the 1st of April. However, we believe that the service we've had in the past historically will be maintained And as members, we will work to make sure that happens in a spirit of cooperation. So just to welcome this report, and hopefully we'll adopt it.
Councillor Brodie.
Thanks, Chair. I also welcome the report as a way forward to deliver policing effectively and efficiently in Dumfries and Galloway in the future, and look forward to working with the police on the priorities which they've identified and fit the community's needs. Obviously, it's what's not in the report which concerns us all at the moment. How is the effect of a single police force going to impact on Dumfries and Galloway? How it's going to meet the unique needs of our area, which is policing based on consensus. Obviously, there's a few areas of public concern which have brought to my attention. There was a Facebook page which I'm very glad that the Dumfries and Galloway police Facebook page is going to be retained, slightly rebranded, but it's very popular with the public. I'm glad that the police have listened to local concerns, and I hope that will be the case in the future. Another area where there is public concern is the change in armed response, the arrangements for armed response. People are concerned about the presence of guns on the street. We had some information at the area committee about this. So I'd just like to ask the police exactly what is going to be the details of the armed response team, so that I can pass that on to the public.
If I can just speak, obviously, I totally understand everyone's concerns about armed police. I'll deal with it first. With the greatest respect to the group, it is an operational decision, and if I can reassure you that my ultimate priority is about keeping people safe, but to be able to do that, we have to have an appropriate level of response and capability of response in order to do that. We would not disclose what our tactics are in terms of firearms, but what I can tell you is there is an ARV, an armed response vehicle, will be in operation in Dumfries and Galloway. We are the last force in the UK to make that adoption. Had we been remaining a police force and not amalgamating into a single force, I would suggest we would be having that discussion now anyway with you, that we would need to move to that stage in order to ensure accreditation of our ability to respond to serious incidents. Obviously, the Derek Bird case in Cumbria brought it all to apparent to us that as a very rural location, we needed to have that capability in the short term. They will not be walking about the streets armed with any kind of weapons. They are an armed response vehicle that will respond under direct command to specific incidents that meet that criteria. I think there's a question back before I move on.
Councillor Brodie.
I don't think it's the appropriate time for discussion on it, but just make the point that I would disagree that it is merely an operational matter. I think it's a fundamental change in the method of policing in the Galloway, so therefore it's a policy matter as well as an operational matter. So I just make that point.
Your point is well made, but obviously it is the operational deployment, but we would have consulted with members before we had taken that stage if we'd been a force. It will run, we will update members, and please be assured it will be a resource that will only be used when set national criteria are met. And we will be closely scrutinising it as it is a new type of resource that we will see operating in Dumfries and Galloway. In terms of the other areas of business, how will we take forward the force? I suppose in simple terms, you will have the same people patrolling the streets, carrying out the same function. They will be called a slightly different name because we are now Police Scotland, not Dumfries and Galloway Constabulary, but all the strengths that made Dumfries and Galloway Constabulary a very effective force and one that I was very proud to be part of, will continue into the new force. We will have to make adjustments, and if I can reassure you, that's what they are. They are adjustments to a slightly different way of policing in some respects. And if I'm being honest, there are some ideas that have come from other forces throughout Scotland that we will adopt because actually we think they will make a measurable difference. Mr House, the new Chief Constable, is very clear where his focus is, and you won't be surprised to know it is about protecting particularly vulnerable people, but he has a real focus on domestic violence, about road casualty reduction, which I know is at the heart of a lot of our discussions as well. And there are areas of business where there are different tactics and opportunities for us to improve our already good performance, and that's what we will be doing.
Councillor Dryborough.
Thanks very much, Chair. I welcome the report as well. And just on the mention of the armed response vehicle, I mean, I think, first of all, we need to make sure that the public are safe. And by the way we make sure the public are safe is by making sure our police are safe as well. The increase in knife crimes and drug crimes and things like that could actually put the police in a perilous situation. So I think it's right, it's an operational matter for the chief officer in the region to actually deploy those particular tactics. I think that what I've seen over the last 6 years as a local elected member is the way that we as members and communities interact with the police, and we've seen a far better service from the police because of the measures that we put in place, the discussions that we have, and I'd like to thank Dumfries and Galloway Police for that improvement in service, and I hope it continues with the new Police Scotland.
Councillor McClung.
Yeah, thanks, Leader. I'm obviously going to welcome the local policing plan as well, and I would echo much of what Councillor Dryborough says. To go back to the armed response vehicle, am I not right in thinking from my previous employment we have in the past had an armed response vehicle in the force, and the same concerns were being voiced when we equipped our officers with the new baton, the stab vest and the CS sprays, and that made absolutely no difference to the service that the public got from the police.
Councillor Peacock.
Thank you, Leader. Again, I'd like to endorse this policing plan. As a member of the Police, Fire and Rescue Committee, it has gone before there under Pathfinder, as Superintendent Galloway has said, and it has been well scrutinised at those particular committees and therefore approved to this Council for recommendation. On the back of that, I would also reassure this Council that I'm quite confident that with adoption of this particular police plan and under the guidance of Kate here, moving forward as our local police commander, I'm sure that this will continue to keep the people and the public of Dumfries and Galloway safe.
Councillor Scobie.
The police nicked my chair, Chairman. Always good advice for Tom, innit? Honestly. Chair, I'm looking at this and I'm referring to priority 4. I'm pleased to see that it is a priority in terms of antisocial behaviour. And in it, it recognises noisy neighbours. And no later than yesterday, I met with the police and the antisocial behaviour team, which may have a new title now. However, there is a serious concern. I have raised it at Policy and Resources and in other places with regards to the community safety strategy and how it lacks detail in terms of who actually has the authority. But, you know, this is clear in terms of how we're going to deal with it. But I think there is a part missing in this one as well, because where it recognises animal nuisance, then we have an issue in dogs barking in terms of how we can deal with that, and sometimes the advice being given in terms of that the person who is making the complaint should take a civil action out as the police hands are tied. But it's moving to the noise nuisance, neighbour complaints and everything else, and it recognises it here, and then it goes on to say our objectives are to, and it goes reduce antisocial behaviour crimes and offences, increase the number of antisocial behaviour tickets issued, maintain a percentage. I think there's a part missing here in dealing with antisocial behaviour in terms of noise nuisance, neighbour disputes, etc., in a timious way or as quickly as possible. I have situations, and I've read of others throughout the authority in the region, where it goes for 1 day, 1 week, 1 month, 1 year, 2 years, 4 years, 6-year cases, and still we're seeing cases moving on. And there's a lot of resources used by police in this authority, and our protocol do not deal with this issue in terms of who's responsible, what responsibility they've got,
in terms of our RSL. And I think we need to build this in terms of dealing with it so that, you know, our resources are not being disproportionately used when there should be remedy with the RSL in terms of how we deal with it. I say this to full council because I have met with the Chief Executive and the Chief Constable, because I do believe there is responsibility on the RSL to look at remedy and to consider remedy. Whether they accept that they have a responsibility is a separate issue, but we should be looking at remedy, and the RSL should be responsible for it. So I think, you know, we need to build that in, and I would hope that we can build that in our objectives.
I think you make a very good point, and I suppose the response initially would be this is really what I would see as the interim report for a year, and a lot of the work that we will do in the next year is work with partners to firm up some of the detail round about that, because like you, there are certain areas of even our police report that I think as we evolve and work together and make much more I was going to say spread the load, but make sure everybody understands what they're accountable for. It. There's absolute clarity, and that mirrors it all the way through. Your point is noted, and we will definitely take it forward, and we will be continuing the work about whose responsibility is it to take things forward. And as I say, this is an interim report probably for a year, but to be honest, we will virtually start rewriting it as we go forward.
If I could just come back, Chair, you know, I accept and appreciate this as an interim report and come back in a year. There are issues where I don't think we should be waiting a year. You know, these are issues, and as I say, I met yesterday with an inspector, and, you know, remedy must be a big issue, responsibility, and I would like to see it coming back sooner, but we are dealing with this with the RSL, so that it's tied into the protocol. I know Mr. Haswell, you know, Policy and Resources said that we will be back sooner than before June with a report. But you know, the police are always ready to respond. I'm not saying they'll get to the complainant as quickly as perhaps the complainant would like it, but it can't be just, you know, that's domestic noise, dismiss it. We need to look at this and report back sooner.
Take on board the assurances had. Ready to move to the recommendations now, and at paragraph 2, 2.1, 2.2 and 2.3. I'm happy to agree. We move on to item 4, Scottish Fire and Rescue Service, Dumfries and Galloway local plan. This paper was circulated with a separate bundle of papers on 26 March, and asked members to approve and endorse the interim local fire and rescue plan and action plan. The plan has already been considered by the Police Fire and Rescue Committee on 21st of March 2013, which is why it was circulated after the main body of the papers. The plan was well received by the committee and is before us for full council scrutiny. The plan sets out interim objectives and actions for the Dumfries and Galloway division of the new Scottish Fire and Rescue Service for 2013-14. It is hoped that the plan and actions arising from it will ensure that we continue to receive the excellent fire and rescue services which were provided by Dumfries and Galloway Fire and Rescue Service. I would also want to take this opportunity of thanking Acting Deputy Chief Fire Officer Hamish McGee for his stewardship of our own Fire and Rescue Authority over the past year. Mr McGee, have you anything to add to the report?
No, Chair, thanks very much for that recognition. Just simply to echo the part that we've done extensive consultation with members in the various arenas, and also we've used the Pathfinder very much like the police, and I'm happy to take any questions that members may have.
Councillor Ogilvie.
Thanks. Just more or less the same what I said in the previous report. Sometimes the fire service is overshadowed a wee bit by the police. The police seems to have a more focus, and I just want to put on record that we've always valued the fire service, and I'm reassured because when we had the visit to the training centre last month, the chair, Pat Waters, was there, and we asked him some questions about the future, and we were given a lot of reassurances that it will stay the same, and we'll enjoy the same facilities and the same approach that we've always done, except in a national context. So I just want to pass on my thanks to Hamish and his staff and we look forward to working in the future with Neville and the new officers. Thanks.
Councillor Syme.
And just in the back of that, Chair, I think we'd like to thank Carol Henshaw for all that really hard work she did on the Pathfinder.
No further hands up. We have the recommendations there at paragraph 2. I'm happy to agree the content of the local fire and rescue plan for implementation as attached to appendices 1 and 2. Thank you, Hamish. Move on to item 5, review of schemes of delegation. This is the third report that was circulated on the 22nd of March and contains recommendations from the Police, Fire and Rescue Committee regarding the Council's decision-making arrangements for police, fire and rescue business after the 1st of April 2013. The recommendation is for a subcommittee of the full Council in the first instance, with longer-term arrangements being considered by the ad hoc subcommittee, which is currently reviewing the Council's scheme of delegation. I think it would be appropriate and would assure continuity if we agreed that the existing Police, Fire and Rescue Committee should be established as a subcommittee of the Council and that the existing membership should remain as is. Obviously, membership is a matter for individual groups, but I am able to confirm that the administration membership of the existing committee will transfer to the proposed subcommittee. Mr Haswell, have you anything to add to your report?
Nothing to add, Chairman.
Councillor Maitland.
And I'm happy to confirm that the independent group's nomination will be Councillor Peacock.
Councillor Ogilvie.
Yeah, I'm pleased with this recommendation because this was what came out in discussions with the Pathfinder group going forward. So the interim thing is brilliant. It keeps continuity. I said at last week's Police and Fire that the Labour group would stay the same just to keep the continuity. It may change once the scheme of delegation report comes. However, in the interim, it looks like more or less the same people will be on it. So I welcome this report.
Councillor Forster.
Yep, happy to agree the report as well, Leader. It brings in geographical spread. The present Police and Fire Committee take people from the west straight through to the east. Before that wasn't always guaranteed. As for the nomination from the non-aligned group, we will have a fight later on.
Right, there's no other hands up. The recommendations, members are asked to agree to 1, to 2, to 3, to 4 and to 5. Okay. As I indicated at the beginning of the meeting, I intend to take item 7 on the agenda calling the meeting now, and this will be followed by item 6. Item 7 is the non-residential community care services charging policy, activity and resource centres. This issue has already been considered by the Social Work Services Committee in detail, and its findings are set out in paragraph 3.4. The report also recommends that the use of activity and resource centres should not be included within the daycare component as a chargeable service. Councillor Maitland.
Just at this stage, before we go into the substance of the debate, I just want to draw your attention, Leader, to a mistake, which I think is it's an administrative mistake. It's to do with the minutes of the meeting of February. In the italics, straddling 45 and 46, and there was great debate in the Social Work Services Committee, and the wording should be charge to be levied for activity and resource centre service users, and therefore no charge should have been levied, is the correct wording in that. I think members will probably remember there was a very long debate about this. So just to make that clear at that stage. Thank you.
Mr. Haswell.
The member's quite correct, sir.
If there's no questions, we'll move to the recommendations. Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you. I'd just like to say if Councillor Maitland had noticed that mistake in the March paper that we wouldn't have been here and agreed with us. The Labour Group very much welcomes this report. I suppose the only disappointment is that it's taken so long for it to bring it before the Council. In March 2012, Councillor Martin actually specifically asked at the Social Work Committee what the charge in that report for adult daycare services would cover, and was given an answer that basically said everything apart from ARCs. In June 2012, the Labour Group also highlighted in a motion the fact that the report that went to social work on the 18th of March 2011 contained an error because it made no reference to introducing ARC charges. The report therefore should not have been used as a basis for claiming ARC charges were introduced when these were eventually imposed. But this was ignored by the administration and our motion was voted down, unfortunately. Again in August 2012, we highlighted this error in the report, but again the administration refused to accept it and then wasted several months with a very restricted consultant's view, which we have before us. The review told us nothing we didn't already know, only what the administration for months refused to accept, and that is the fact that no safe decision was ever taken to introduce ARC charges. The report today also tells us what we have thought for some time, that there is also no credible business case for such a charge. And I hope that members will agree unanimously, if somewhat belatedly, not to introduce ARC charges. I also hope that given how long it has taken to get to a place where we could have got to a year ago, the Council will also apologise to ARC users for the worry this whole issue has caused them. With that, I'm happy to move the recommendation, which is long overdue.
Councillor Scobie.
Yeah, Chairman, it's right to say there was an extensive debate on this at Social Work Committee, and indeed the points were made that Ronnie has just made at the Social Work Committee. It has been a long, outstanding issue, and the members or the users of the ARC have suffered, as has their carers. And I think that we can, working together, all, I hope, agree unanimously that they are excluded from the chargeable services today, and happy to second the recommendation, Chair.
Councillor Ferguson.
Thanks, Leader. I have to actually agree with the majority of what's been said up to now, but I would actually ask the Council to reflect that what we did was a proper, clear process that actually gave us an evidence base to make the decision, not on what people thought was actually happening. And that was crucial. And because we did that, the members who use the ARCs and their carers and families now have a crystal clear message exactly what the situation is, and it's not open to anybody's, how can I put it, own interpretation of what it might be. It's crystal clear now. And I think if it took a wee bit extra time to do that, then so much the better. And nobody paid any money in the interim, right? So there was no financial loss at that stage. I think doing that, we got the actual best outcome for everyone. But I totally, I think we agree to move the recommendation as Councillor Nicholson said.
Councillor Martin.
Thanks, Chair. I actually just got to second Councillor Nicholson's motion, but I think this has left no credit on this administration whatsoever, and the worry. It may be okay that they've not paid any money, but the worry that the ARC users have because of the possibility that they would be charged for these things. You had users actually putting money by just in case these charges came in, and I think I've got to agree with Councillor Nicholson that this administration should certainly apologise to these people.
Councillor Maitland.
Oh, well, let be the one that says, actually, I think we're not doing the right thing here. I don't think you've got a business case here to take a decision either way, or yes or no today. There is no information here which explains why you are or are not taking the decision, and members are muddling up what happened in the past with what is coming in the future. The public can't bear it when you have a capricious decision, and I would suggest at this stage the public would not understand why you were carving ARC charges out of the rest of the charges for non-residential care. All other residential, non-residential charges are going to be dealt with in the next report that we look at. And it's clearly explained what you pay and how you contribute. I would suggest that there are means, actually, of saying that we will have people with self-directed support who might well find themselves being charged for such a service, sitting alongside people who are not being charged for it because they are not on that particular system. And I'm absolutely with members that it should be crystal clear as to why people pay, but I think at this stage I would suggest to members that you do not have sufficient information to take that decision. And so I would propose an amendment, which is, I would say that members are asked to consider the recommendations of the Social Work Services Committee on 21st of February, and to remit to Social Work Services for a full report to take a decision on the basis of a full business case. And then we can add the findings of that Social Work Services Committee to the non-residential charging policy, which will be agreed probably in the next report.
Councillor Brodie.
Yeah, I'm just checking that what the recommendation is, that we have changed the recommendation to reflect what was agreed at the Social Work Committee, which is that the charges should not have been included within the daycare component. Is that right?
My understanding that is what the recommendation should read now to reflect the minute.
So we're not making a decision about future possible charges for that service.
Yes, that's what Councillor Nicholson indicated that he was wanting as the recommendation, was that it was as written on the paper rather than what should have been on it.
And has that been accepted by the social work chairman and etc.?
Chair, on a point of order.
I have a couple of people wishing to speak. One of them is the social work chairman. However, I'll give him the opportunity when it's his turn. Councillor Dick first, and then Councillor Ferguson.
Thanks, Chair. I think some recognition needs to be made of the PricewaterhouseCoopers report on this, and I completely agree with Councillor Ferguson. It was a responsible thing to do to get an evidence-based examination of the whole affair before councillors made the decision which we did on ARC charging, and I would commend PricewaterhouseCoopers for the thorough way in which they produced this report.
Councillor Ferguson.
Thank you, Leader. It's my understanding, I'll stand corrected here, but it's the local authorities' charging policy. It's the council's charging policy, not the social work department's charging policy. And the one thing we do need to do is decide before we move on to item 6 whether, in fact, we want to have a charging policy for ARC services or not. The referral to name that Jane put about in the past was actually, in fact, was part of the minute, not part of the recommendation, is my understanding.
Councillor Scobie.
Yeah, just for clarification, I understood Ronnie to move the recommendation, and that's what I seconded. Not in terms of what's reflected in the social work minute. It's what's here before us, and that's clear. So you're clear because you seem to read out that it was the minute that we were moving. It's the recommendation.
My understanding was that at the start we agreed that the minute would be changed to reflect it should not have, which would then have changed the minute, but Councillor Nicholson said he was moving the minute as written. The recommendation as written. Yeah. Councillor McKee.
I think, listening to some of the speakers, Chair, I think their problem seems to be they think there was a charge there before and it's been stopped. There has never been a charge for ARC services, and I think that's what we need to get through to the members.
With that, we have a motion and a proposal from Councillor Maitland. Do you have a second? Councillor Brodie.
I'll second that.
Mr. Haswell, I think we're ready to go to the vote. Gentlemen, we have a large agenda. If we could just keep the sort of side remarks a wee bit so we can get through it quicker.
Thank you, Leader. The motion is with Councillor Nicholson, seconded by Councillor Scobie, and that is that members note the recommendations of the Social Work Services Committee and agree that the use of activity and resource centres should not be included within the day centre component as a chargeable service. The amendment by Councillor Maitland, seconded by Councillor Brodie, is that the Council notes the recommendations of the Social Work Services and agrees to remit to the Social Work Services Committee to consider charges for the day centre component as a chargeable service on the basis of a full business case. Thank you. Thank you. Are you ready to proceed to the vote, Leader?
Yes.
Leader?
Motion.
Deputy Leader?
Motion.
Councillor Bell? Councillor Blake?
Motion.
Councillor Brodie? Councillor Crothers? Ian? Councillor Crothers? Councillor Davidson?
Motion.
Councillor Dempster? Councillor Dick?
Motion.
Councillor Diggle? Councillor Dryborough?
Motion.
Councillor Dykes? Councillor Ferguson?
Motion.
Councillor Forster? Councillor Gilroy?
Amendment.
Councillor Groom? Sorry, Provost Groom?
Motion.
Councillor Yen?
Motion.
Councillor Lever?
Motion.
Councillor Cawtrey?
Motion.
Councillor McClung? Councillor McClung?
Motion.
Councillor McComb?
Amendment.
Councillor McCutcheon?
Motion.
Councillor McGregor?
Amendment.
Councillor McKee?
Motion.
Councillor Maitland?
Amendment.
Councillor Mayo?
Amendment.
Councillor Marshall?
Motion.
Councillor Martin?
Motion.
Councillor Nicholson?
Motion.
Councillor Nicholl? Councillor Ogilvie?
Motion.
Councillor Peacock?
Amendment.
Councillor Prentice?
Amendment.
Councillor Scobie?
Motion.
Councillor Smith?
Motion.
Councillor Stitt? Councillor Syme?
Motion.
Councillor Tate?
Motion.
Councillor Stephen Thompson?
Motion.
Councillor Ted Thompson?
Motion.
Councillor Tuckfield? Councillor Witts? Councillor Wood?
Motion.
Leader, the motion is carried by 35 votes to 8, there being one abstention.
Move back to item 6 now.
Chair, can I just say, I might have intimated item 7 there, it was actually item 6.
Could I bring Councillor Dick in at this point? Councillor Dick?
Chair, it was remiss of me, but I have a declaration of interest in this familial, and I'll remove myself.
Councillor Tuckfield?
I have an interest in number 6 as well.
Councillor McGregor?
I think on that basis I have as well and probably should remove myself.
I'll do a quick count. Councillor Dykes?
Just for a point of clarification, if you've got a family member at all in receipt of any of these benefits, are you supposed to declare an interest and remove yourself from this chamber? Because that is what appears to be happening, and I'm just checking.
My understanding it's always to do with public perception and the member's own decision whether they feel that the family link is close enough to suggest that the decision that they make may be influenced by that. Is that correct, Mr. Hudson?
In that case, I'll declare an interest.
Councillor McClung?
I would just like to clarify, I asked for governance advice prior to the meeting regarding item 6. My wife works for home care, but I was told I did not need to declare an interest as the interest was not regarding, so I will not be leaving.
Councillor Wood?
Having had the clarification I've just heard, I think I will also be leaving.
Councillor Marshall.
Yeah, Chair, I have a close family member as well, so I'll declare an interest.
Councillor Davidson. We are still quorum. I'm just checking. 12's the number required. This item, because it is an item that stands delegated to social work, requires us to remove delegation. The reason it's here, it needs to be agreed today so that we can implement it by the due date. So I would move that we do agree to withdraw delegation on this matter. It's a fairly complex report, and I'm going to ask Heather Collington to highlight the key issues for members' consideration. Collington.
Okay, hopefully the report is self-explanatory on one level, and we're more than happy to take any detailed questions you have, but the points that you might want to look to would be the considerations and the issues that we've raised in the review and the key parts of the policy that we're asking you to consider, as well as the uplift in terms of the component rates for the policy. And you need to do that in the sense within the context of the changes that we've highlighted that are about to sort of come our way around self-directed support and welfare reform, which will have an impact on the whole issue of charging in the future. But those, I think, are the key things you need to look to and consider in the report.
Right. First speaker is Councillor Smith, Councillor Ferguson, Councillor McKean, Councillor Maitland.
I mean, I just want to express a bit of a concern that once again we do have a report that you're basically telling us we must agree this today because we've basically got 3 days before it becomes implemented. This review of charging policy has been going on for, what, I don't know, 6, 7, 8, 9 months, and we get a report 3 days before the 1st of April and we get told we have to agree it today. So actually there's not much opportunity to amend this report and get additional information. I think that's unacceptable for such an important issue. I don't think anybody will have any disagreement with the specific changes to the policy. The maximum contribution figure would appear to be pretty much irrelevant because nobody actually reaches that particular figure at the moment. It's more about covering the council's back from a legal point of view, and the changes in terms of DLA and attendance allowance are perfectly straightforward. What I'm concerned about, though, is changes that members may wish to see in the charging policy that we're not really getting an opportunity to feed into that. And part of it is because the charging policy is so complex that until you actually sit down and you see charges being worked out in front of you, it's very difficult to get your head around exactly how the policy is implemented. And I think we do need to have a seminar or a training session, whatever you want to call it, where social work staff actually set out in detail as many examples as possible of charges actually being calculated so we can see exactly how this can be implemented. Because I've seen several involving constituents, and frankly, it takes a lot of explaining how we get to some of the figures that we actually do, and I think that would help us then look whether or not we want any future changes. Obviously, our report's going to come before social work in June regarding the financial implications of this report, and it may very well be we have a seminar well before then, and we get an opportunity to maybe put forward further changes we might want to see in this particular charging policy. What I'm also concerned about is some of the changes that have taken place already that I certainly haven't seen members ever agreeing to. I'll give you one example that was flagged up by the Labour group in meetings with the Chief Executive some months ago. We were promised that it was going to be investigated and we never ever got any feedback, but it was the fact that the 55% taper used to be calculated after the savings tariff had been added. However, there's been a change in the policy somewhere along the lines that I've never seen agreed by any committee, whereby the 55% taper is now levied before the savings tariff income is taken into account. And as a result of that change, people's charges have actually gone up. Now, I'd quite like to know when that change was agreed, who agreed it, and how long it's actually been implemented by, because a lot of people do appear to have had their charges amended as a direct result of that change. And I certainly, looking through minutes of Social Work Committee papers, can't believe or see where that change was actually agreed by anyone. So there do appear, and I would also like to know what other changes have been made to the charging policy that members might not necessarily be aware of.
Calling down.
Okay. In terms of the 55% taper, my understanding, and I would have to go back and check the detail for you to make sure that I was giving you the correct information, but my understanding is that it's been calculated in the way that you describe over the last, certainly the last year, if not the last 2 years. But we would have to go back and look at the detail of where, if that was made a change, at what point that was changed in those calculations.
We'll get that information back to Councillor Smith.
On the same point, it's fine saying that, but I think the important issue is that, you know, there has been a change, and we brought that case, you know, a particular case forward. The savings tariff used to be part of the income part, and then you know, you had calculation taper, but now, that was in 2011-12, but 2012-13, you've got the 55% taper. Then added on to that, you've got the savings tariff. So an example being, if you go to page 37, 600, the top of the, you know, the calculation, you've got the income state pension, attendance allowance, occupational pension. This is based on somebody with £20,000 savings. So you have that income, total income. Now that savings tariff would, in 2011-12, was added onto that 253.79, which would have brought that up to 272.79. So, and that was £19, and the charge would be £19. But now, what's happening is that £19 for the savings tariff is added on to the end. You know, it's added on after the taper. So you've got the 55% taper, then you've got the savings tariff, which then, you know, means there's a charge for £19. So beforehand, there wouldn't have been a charge of £19. 2011-12, there wouldn't have been a charge of £19, but now there is a charge of £19 in this particular case because of the way it's been changed. And nobody, as far as I know, and Councillor Smith's quite correct, that, you know, I've had a look through as well, and nobody took that decision that that was then going to be changed, because basically what it is you're actually just getting money from people, you know, without a change in policy. There's been a way that the calculations have changed, but it didn't come to the committee.
Councillor Ferguson.
Thanks, Leader. I understand Councillor Smith's concerns, but I'd just like to draw members' attention to the seminar the Social Work Department opened to every member of the Council, I guess a couple of months ago, and just exactly how the charging policy operated and worked and was set out. And the members who attended that day left, I think, agreed that they had a much better understanding of the whole process, and it had been very clearly set out. The second point that you make is that part of this process is drawn up through COSLA, and we are dependent on some of that advice to best practice. I can tell you from the Health and Wellbeing COSLA meeting just quite recently, they are still renegotiating at this time, for example, the residential care amount. So that's still ongoing. I really got to say that both Heather and Caroline have done a good job here, a great job actually, at trying to get across to members who what is a veritable minefield of very complex information, and it's easily understood and reflects the issues as best it could possibly do. I would suggest, and as such, I would actually move the recommendations at this moment in time, purely and simply because the developing national situations will potentially change in the future, right? And that will depend on the Westminster government and what comes through COSLA. So I would move that we adopt the recommendations at this stage.
Councillor McKee.
Thanks, Chair. Fair enough. I was at that seminar as well, and I think it was well delivered. But there's always wee issues that you miss, and the issue that Councillor Nicholson raised on page 37, tariff income and capital, should that not come under the income calculation rather than under the excess income? Because in the income there's a shortfall that the total allowances they wouldn't be charged anything for their care, because the total cost of chargeable service is £31.20. But if that tariff income on capital had been on income, they wouldn't have been liable to pay anything. And we think there's maybe been a mistake made in where that tariff income on capital has been put. And that's the thing we need clarified. And I notice in the papers, page 15, 312.2, they're talking about PIP, this new welfare reform and what have you, the DLA payments. The PIP has 2 payment levels rather than 3 for DLA, and the changes will impact on charging policy. Could he indicate to us just exactly what you anticipate that being, please? It would be helpful, I think, that people maybe don't recognise, but you've got your income plus 16.5% before you start calculating for deductions. It might be helpful if you broke it up to show that 16.5% in the table, so that people understand that it's not the bare income that's being charged, but it's the bare income plus 16.5% before any charges started. I think that might be helpful as well. That'll do for just now, thanks.
Heather, could you address those points?
Yes, in terms of the 55%, we'll certainly go back and check that against the guidance to ensure that that's the correct calculation, but our understanding is that that's linked to the progressive nature of the policy. But we will make sure that that's absolutely right against both our own policy and COSLA. And in terms of the DLA and the PIP changes, those are the very areas that at the minute it's really difficult to say what those changes will be and the impact they will have. It's complicated by the DLA AA change means that we're only taking account of one area of those levels. So that's a change in that, and it's likely that the introduction of the PIP payment will change that further. So we're going to have to go back and look at what the implication of that will be. But that's alongside what some of the changes might be around self-directed support. So at this stage, we think we'll be coming back with suggestions around charging as an issue, which are actually about looking at it as a whole issue about what these changes in legislation might mean, because it might mean we have to look at it fundamentally differently. So we've tried to give you as much information about some of those changes, but without trying to sort of second guess what the impact is at this stage, because we simply don't know that just yet, and are about to embark on another piece of work to look at what some of that will actually be. I think in terms of the 16.5%, I think that's really, really helpful, and it is really important to note that our policy is actually very generous compared to other local authorities and sits within the COSLA guidance, but certainly there are a number of the areas where we are offering a much more generous level. Our income levels alone are more generous than other local authorities, so we need to see the balance of that across the whole component rates.
On that payment, are you saying that there's a payment at the present moment where there's some of it a disregard, and with the changes in the PIP, that disregard might disappear and you maybe have to do a separate calculation?
The change at the minute is that it's a bit about which level of attendance allowance or DLA allowance that you have that's taken into account in terms of whether or not, which bit of that we disregard and what we actually take into account. So that's the fundamental change. When the PIP one comes in and it shifts the levels, then what we would be expecting to have would be further guidance then on whether any of that or all of that is then considered as a disregard. So it's that sort of level of detail that we're waiting for that will sort of explain to us what will actually happen.
Councillor Maitland.
Thank you very much. Members have said that they think the policy is very clear, and I agree with them. I do think that it's based upon the principles of ability to pay and to contribute, because after all, it's not in any shape or form contributing or paying the economic cost of the packages which are provided. I see this, as the officer is suggesting, as work in progress, because I think the landscape out there is going to change quite considerably in the next year. I really do. I just wonder if I could ask about whether this will come back and when it will come back and to where, because this is an annual uplift, and I'd like to be sure that this will come back in some shape or form. I will not reiterate, I've made my point about the ARCs. I think that it is a mistake, but I will leave that to lie, because I think that will have to be considered in the future to be clear and to be equitable to people. The questions that I have is on page 39, with the review. I think, just to be absolutely clear, it's stage 1 review, paragraph 331 at the bottom, a request to review within 28 days. Now, I think if I was a member of the public, I'd say within 28 days of what? So if we could just maybe put in what that is, so there's no dubiety. I think it's much easier if we know what that is working against. I go back again to the question about where this will come back to. So if I could have an answer to those, that would be very helpful.
Heather?
Yes, I mean, this is incorporates the annual uplift report, which is why it's really important to come back. But you're right, this is work in progress, and this is about how we bring this back to members. And obviously I would look for guidance as to where that comes back to. But I think you might want to think about whether or not there's a need to come back to look at charging as an issue before you look at any sort of changes to the policy again, if that makes sense, because it is that bit about making sure we have an understanding of the changes that are coming around self-directed support in particular and welfare reform, and what impact that will have on the whole concept and issue of charging. And if we considered that, and we're able to then give you information to have that proper debate, then after that we then put together whatever the policy is coming from that debate, I think might be quite helpful.
Councillor Scobie?
Yeah, Chair, and I think Heather's just gone to the heart of the very thing, you know, in terms of the issue being an ongoing one and subject to change. My recent experience, again, touching on the point that Colin referred to in terms of where was a decision taken, my recent experience has been that as members we simply want to excuse and dismiss what is put over to us as an operational issue and one that is subject to policy rather than just an operational issue, although standing orders does allow members to be involved in operational issues where appropriate. So there is an issue in there for me. Andy refers to, and this touches on the point that Heather's just spoken of, where it is an ongoing issue at Costla and indeed in other places, that it more than likely will be the subject of change. And indeed, there are many national bodies making representation where many of the organisations that are included in the charging policy should be excluded, similar to the ARC. So, you know, in my opinion, we appear to be making policy on the hoof without, you know, or at least dealing with what we've got before us in terms of the information, but there is further information unfolding as we go along. So I'd be interested to hear, you know, if there is to be a motion or amendment coming from the Labour group in terms of perhaps deferring this issue, if indeed there is the time to do so, on the back of the further information that it could be, I have no doubt will be, coming forward.
Councillor McClung?
Yeah, thanks, Leader. The examples that are shown in Appendix 3, page 34 to page 38, one thing that concerns me is every one of the examples is either living in sheltered housing or local authority housing. What about people who own their own homes? There's no an example there of people who own their own homes and what kind of charge they'll be applied. And there will be service users out there who actually own their own home and are not paying a mortgage because they'll have paid it off some time ago.
Okay, there's a distinction here between what is taken into account around your assets and your capital, and the non-residential charging policy. We don't take account of people's capital in terms of their house. So that would only be if we were looking at the residential charging policy, where you would look at the value of somebody's house, and that would then count towards the calculation. But for the purposes of the non-residential charging policy, that doesn't happen. So that's why you don't see that reflected here.
Councillor Smith.
Chair, yeah, I mean, I'm assuming if Councillor Ferguson's well informed, he's aware of the change that I referred to earlier, then he can tell me when that was actually agreed. But I mean, I take on board what he says about the seminar, but the seminar was about the previous charging policy, and what we're proposing and suggesting is that we have a seminar, first of all, on the new charging policy, but also on the incredibly large train that's hitting this region on the 1st of April called welfare reform, that Mr Ferguson might actually have noticed. We need to have, as part of that seminar, a discussion on the impact of welfare reform on the council's charging policy, and that's what the aim of the seminar would be. So, you know, it's fine to have a seminar on the previous charging policy, but they're going to be, not only are we making changes here today, but there are actually going to be an awful lot of changes coming in as a result of welfare reform that I think is important that members are briefed on and given the information on. So that's the aim of having a seminar. If Councillor Ferguson doesn't want to go to that, it's a choice, obviously, but you know, we should be given that information because there are changes that are coming in as a result of welfare reform that will impact on the way in which we actually operate our charging policy and what the income actually will be from that charging policy. We know that some of the changes will actually mean the council will lose income through our charging policies. We need to be given that information as councillors, and that, in my view, would be the aim of any additional seminar we have.
Councillor Ferguson.
Thanks, Leader. My concern about deferring would actually leave us with a policy that's even more out of date than what we currently have. I'd be quite happy if Colin was agreeable to add another recommendation in that the council receive further reports to embrace the national changes at the earliest opportunities on every, because it is a moving feast. I would suggest to members, and things are changing monthly, sometimes even weekly or daily.
Right. No, Councillor Scobie.
Yeah, Chair, just on what Andy's saying as an amendment, or whether Colin would accept the amendment. You know, you did at the beginning move the removal of delegated powers from social work fees. You know, then it would come back to a full council. And bearing in mind the remarks made on the ARC, it took a hell of a long time, you know, on the ARC, in my opinion. So, you know, why the need, the urge for speeding it, you know, when we should be sitting down looking at the welfare reform, looking at the change, what the impact is on the charging policy. And my question, clarification is, will it come back to the full council as indeed where we're considering it today in terms of the charging policy, or will delegated powers be put back on and it goes to social work?
Mr Hazel, I would take the fact that this is a report that would normally go to social work. It would go there. Social work meetings are every 2 months, whereas council can be every quarter, so it might be more expedient to actually get it to social work. And I think there's the Welfare Reform Subcommittee that will take on board the issues there. However, it may be worthwhile having a seminar as soon as we do get some changes and to explain these 4 members who weren't able to attend that previous one. I know I wasn't able to attend that one, and I would find it very helpful. Maybe something we could consider. Right. With that, we have the recommendations.
Thanks, Chairman. I think members are adopting the recommendations at 2.2.1 through to 2.2.4. You're adding in additional requirements or additional decisions that the Social Work Services Committee will receive further reports on changes as they go through, that the subcommittee established to look at welfare reform will have the opportunity of looking at the effects of welfare reform on this charging policy and making recommendations to Policy and Resources and indeed to Social Work Services Committee. And I think there is a will among members to have a seminar at a practical level for members before the next report comes to committees, just to make sure members are up to speed with how the policy actually operates. I think there's one outstanding administrative issue, which is Heather will come back to members with details of the application of the taper. I think that needs clarification before this policy is actually implemented. And I think Heather could do that on an administrative basis if members were agreeable to that. Is that okay, Leader?
No dissent. Move on to item 8. If the members are listening in the members' lounge, if they'd like to return. Right. Members, move on to item 8. I think members have had the opportunity to return. This report sets out our proposed prudential indicators and asks members to agree a Treasury management strategy statement for the next financial year. The activities will be subject to continual monitoring and amendment as necessary. Mr. Garrett, have you anything to add to your report?
Thanks, Chair. I think you summarised the main issues in the report. Just a couple of points to add. Firstly, that the prudential indicators are based on the capital investment strategy approved by members at the Policy and Resources Committee last October. And secondly, to say that the Treasury management strategy, I think that the main issue within there is that we're continuing with our existing approach of taking advantage of the very low short-term interest rates at present. And that's something we're looking to continue over the course of the year. Obviously, we'll keep an eye on how rates are moving and move back to longer-term borrowing when we feel as though that's advantageous. Happy to answer any questions. Thanks, Chair.
Councillor Dick.
Thanks, Chair. It's not a question, actually, just with reference to 3.4 in this report. I think it's an indication of an excellent finance department, and I think probably one of the best in Scotland.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Chair. Just a question relating to slippage against capital expenditure on page 64. And I was just wondering if you could maybe expand on that a little bit more. I see you note that there's projected slippage, but it mentions there continuing uncertainty against the agreed capital programme. So I was just wondering if you could maybe expand on that. Thank you.
Thanks. Yes, the Council has made good progress in the last couple of years in terms of addressing slippage. However, there is on specific projects still some concerns in terms of delays, and we've reflected that in the borrowing forecast for the current and upcoming financial years. In terms of the way slippage works, you tend to carry forward the expenditure to the subsequent financial year, which means that your capital programme is higher for that year because you've got the agreed programme plus anything carried forward from the year before. So we're taking into account that there may be further slippage in that combined total in the subsequent years, but we think it'll be at a small and manageable level.
Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Chair. It was to ask about 1.7, where the Council has appointed Sector Treasury Services as a Treasury advisor. Can you give us an advice on what the cost is of that appointment and who was the previous advisor for the council and when will we be getting a performance reports on their services to the council?
The council's had a long-standing relationship with sector. Certainly, we've been involved with sector since I've been involved in Treasury management. The amount per annum is a very small figure. It's certainly less than 10,000. I'll get that figure to the member. It's certainly a relatively low figure at the minute. What was the third part of the question, sorry?
The performance report on their operation with us.
I think that in terms of their performance, that's reflected in the council's overall Treasury management performance. And one of the things that I would note is that the council has one of the lowest full interest rates in Scotland at the minute, which, although there are other factors and different characteristics in the range of councils, it is tended to be used as the relative measure of the performance of the Treasury management function. So I think we're generally comfortable how things are going at the present.
Councillor McCaw.
If Councillor Wood wants to get a measure of the performance, if he goes to page 84 out of 600, looks at paragraph 277, and you'll notice that 6-month temporary loans of value 120,883, average rate at 0.294 were taken, 59 temporary loans of value 120.909, average rate 0.309 were repaid. As a result of that, the council is £18,000 better off. So that's your performance for it, just by these rescheduling of the debts.
Thank you for that. I think that's helped a lot of us understand them better. There's no other hands up. We've got the recommendations at 2.1 and 2.2 are to agree, and 2.3 and 2.4 are to no. Item 9 is the first of 3 reports that relate to duties that the council have to undertake under the Equality Act 2010. So item 9 is a report contains information which we are required to publish under the equalities duties imposed on us and identifies action to be taken to address pay disparity. Mr. Kennedy, have you anything that you're needing to add to the report? Or are you happy to take questions?
Nothing to add to the report and happy to take questions, Chair.
Councillor McKee.
Aye, thanks, Chair. Just looking on page 93 at that chart, how can you account for average basic hourly rate being tuppence difference between male and female? And as it happens, females are getting more, and that's, I've no problem with that. But what the difference? I thought it was a case of equal pay, and should everybody know be in the same pay level?
The actual figures that are provided within the report are average figures across complete employee populations. So you've got equal pay groups, and so therefore you can have individuals who are at the bottom of the scale and individuals who are at the top of the scale. The indicative percentage pay gap actually then averages off those for the entire employee group. So that's why you get your notional differences. In terms of the EHRC guidance, they only become significant when they reach a 5% threshold.
Councillor Scobie.
Yeah, Chair. Last week at the Policy and Resources, we had a presentation from our graduates and indeed our modern apprentices. And we all recognised the sterling work of our graduates and the modern apprentices. And I think what is clear is, while in terms of equal pay, I think it's the case that we do pay everybody equal, both male and female. But could I turn you to page 101 and what I picked up following that presentation, not on the day but after it, where it refers to in the second paragraph, second sentence, it is the interest of the council to ensure it has fair and just pay systems. And then on bullet point 3, it talks about examine existing and future pay practices for all employees to ensure that they comply with best practice and promote pay equality.
And it was a question that was asked of me, or at least a comment made, where it would appear, and I take it that the graduates and the modern apprentices are part of the employee status, that we may be paying our modern apprentices and graduates less than other areas. Could we have this looked into, Chair, under what I've just referred to, and if it's the case that we make them up if they are being paid less than what the rate is? I'm not suggesting there is any equal pay issue here. It's just whether we're paying a fair in comparison. We could have that looked into, Chair.
Yes, happy to look into that and to add it into the work programme for HR.
No other questions. We move to the recommendations. Members are asked to approve 2.1 and note 2.2. Undertaking, we'll get back to you on the. Yep. Right. Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. Move on to item 10. This report sets out a set of equality outcomes which the Council is required to publish before the end of April 2013, and I would specifically refer members to Appendix 2, which shows the draft equality outcomes, and Appendix 3, which is the action plan. Ms Manson will be happy to answer any questions. Anything to add to your report? Any questions? Councillor Smith?
I'm just keen to sort of, I think it's an excellent report, and I think a lot of positive ways forward. It's how we then implement it, which obviously will be covered to an extent in the next report, item number 11. I mean, the previous report referred to the fact that 72% of the Council's workforce were female and 28% male, but when you look at the number of senior positions in the Council, 80% are male and 20% are female, so we've obviously got a long way to go in terms of genuine equality. But I'm just keen to know, adopting this policy today, what will be the sort of roll-up plan in terms of implementing that within department's business plan, so we can actually turn it from a lot of excellent work here into actual practical measures on the ground?
As you'll see in the action plan, which is on pages 113 onwards, there are 40 projects and services which we've identified will actually develop and deliver the equalities outcomes. 9 of these are new, and in your agreeing that today, we will make sure that the business plans which are coming forward, for the updated plans that are coming forward for the coming years, include these actions and projects to make sure that your equalities outcomes are going to be achieved.
Just before I ask Councillor Scobie and Councillor Wood to come in, could I ask members to speak into the microphone? Sometimes when the papers are rattling, it's difficult to pick up exactly what they're saying. We don't want to miss anything. Councillor Scobie?
Yeah, Chair, I think it's been some time ago, but I did raise the issue on the Community Health and Social Care Partnership Board when the carer strategy was being launched, which the Council are signatories to. And I asked the question in terms of the equality there between kinship carers and foster carers in terms of what we pay them by allowance. It was said that that would be looked into and they would come back. Now I have not seen this, so perhaps, you know, in that respect, in terms of equality of pay and everything else, that we have an early report on that one as to why there is a huge difference between kinship carers and foster carers, where, in my opinion, they do the same job, they fulfil the same function, and everything else, and why there should be this inequality in allowance. And if I could ask for a report back on that issue, it's been long outstanding, Chair.
I understand the current report is with regard to council employees. That's something that might be better addressed through social work services as part of their plan.
Happy for it to be referred there, Chair, as long as we get the report. I would ask for that report.
Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Chair. It's with page 114, improvement of the gypsy and traveller facilities. And It's about the actual review of current provision and location of sites. On the linkage and purpose, you've also got in there in the best locations. Is that the best locations for the local authority or for the actual gypsies and travellers? And when will we be getting a more detailed overview of what we're actually talking about within that plan? The other area I was a wee bit concerned about as well, and that is we do have at the moment the DGMA and also the LGBT working for certain sectors within our society, and we put a lot of money into these organisations. I do have a wee bit of a concern that we still seem to have, as we look at page 108, there's a section there where they talk about they're likely to feel confident and safe at home. They're less likely to feel confident and safe at home. And they feel second class in this country. And they're looking to be treated with respect. Now, if we have these organisations and hopefully they're doing their job well, I'm disappointed that we have those sort of statements coming out within the service it's happening. And I wonder if we shouldn't be looking at amalgamating these organisations to try and integrate and have a better working relationship between them, rather than keeping them in their separate silos as we are at present. I wondered if there's any way forward that we could maybe do that in conjunction with even the voluntary sector.
With regard to the first point that you raised about the Gypsy Traveller facilities, if you're agreeable that this forms part of your action plan, then the departments would certainly be asked to come forward with the arrangements for the review. And the definition of based, I think, would be about the optimum for the local authority and the community themselves. So I think that would need to be a dialogue. I don't think it's one or the other. With regard to the specifics about how we support the representative groups, we do have a community planning working group that brings them together, and where there are common principles or common issues, they do work together to make sure that we're getting the best value, if you like, from the organisations across all of the protected characteristics. I could maybe ask Melinda to give you a little bit more information about the results of the survey, which was done a year or so ago, just to pick up your specific point about how people feel about these issues.
Thank you. Really just to say that the survey was statistically significant in the sense that people who identified in one of the protected characteristics were significantly more likely to feel that way. And I think some of that is just about the general way they're perceived and the general attitudes they face on a daily basis. And although the groups, as you've detailed them, are there to help that, it requires a societal change really for things to improve, and that's a longer term issue. And although the groups support individuals with conditions and issues that they may have to deal with that, obviously the equalities outcomes are about a more general change in Dumfries and Galloway to allow people to feel more included and feel safer, and all the other things that came out in that.
But can I come back on this? As far as I'm aware, we haven't had a review of what has actually been happening within these groups, and are we in actual fact addressing the problems and issues that these people are facing on a daily basis? And to me, within this report, it doesn't reflect that. And I have a concern as we move forward with tight budgets that we have at present, getting ever tighter, we have to find a mechanism and a way of supporting these people. And I don't believe that at the moment we can continue doing what we've done in the past, and we're not delivering the best options that we could be delivering.
Just to say that the two groups that you mentioned, and in fact a number of other groups, are involved in a commissioning for services. So there is a group at the moment that are looking at exactly what the council needs from these communities, as well as what services that need to be looked at. So there is work underway at the moment to develop a commissioning and tendering process which will enable organisations to bid for money. So the status quo, if you like, will not exist, as my understanding, after April next year, that there will be an opportunity for us to have a discussion about what we want to see from these groups and what we will be paying for in order to to look at what services are currently being delivered.
Councillor Ferguson.
Thank you, Leader. I accept Willie's point entirely, and I actually think, whilst he's been very quite specific, and a lot of that is social work business as such, but it's also community, the entire community business. And actually, if you look at on page 111, the third bullet point under health, social care and support, we actually have it in here that we'll support carers to enable them to continue in their caring role. Now, I'm not suggesting we start in this full council going and debating that and going into it, but I think what we need is a commitment from council through social work department that we will get regular updates on the new children's bill currently going through Parliament, which highlights a lot of these things, particularly the issues about kinship care and fostering and all the different types of childcare, be they statutory interventions or voluntary interventions. So my suggestion would be that we actually do remit that back and ask Liz to take back through the social work committee to actually get something put on an agenda as soon as possible to look at these issues.
With that, we have Councillor Crothers.
I wasn't going to bring up Leader, but I will in the back of Andrew. And it's going back to the same point, which is page 108 at the top. It's the last bullet point referring to LGBT. And it really, it's when it's saying that people are less likely to feel confident. The next part, safe at home, or accepted by their family. That's 80% feeling that they're not safe at home. Is that pointing towards the younger generation? And if it is, I mean, I would have thought, I would have made an assumption. And when I read that, I was quite concerned, I have to say.
Certainly we can break the statistics down against all sorts of different things, and there was a range of people who responded to that. That's an amalgamation of all age groups, statistics that are in that.
Leader, I'd be happy to see the detail of that, because I was quite concerned when I seen it. Is it younger, is it right through, is it people in partnerships and so on?
Councillor Ferguson.
This is actually very interesting because it was discussed yesterday afternoon at the Public Health meeting about lack of statistics for LGBT, transgender, having health issues, for example, somebody who's gone from being a male to a female who still has a prostate. And the lack of data and things being kept. So I would think Melinda is very well aware that there is a huge issue there in terms of looking after this group of people who are extremely vulnerable, and I would suggest we should be doing some work on that in conjunction with health colleagues.
Hands up. We've moved to the recommendations. Agree the Council's equality outcomes as detailed in Appendix 2, and consider the draft action plan at Appendix 3, noting that proposed final actions will be incorporated into business plans update 2013-15, and the point that Councillor Scobie made, that Councillor Ferguson accepted, that we require a report through social work under the Children's Act to update us on any movement there, that we can address the points Councillor Scobie made.
It's a point, Chair, that looking at the equality of payment between kinship and foster, so that we do get an examination of that.
Councillor Wood.
On 2.2, where I accept that the business plans updates, I was wondering if there would also be a master plan overarching all of those business plans.
It's the departmental business plans that come to your service committees. So, for example, we would expect the Planning and Environment Services business plan to incorporate the issues about transport equality, which are contained in the action plan. Any corporate issues would be part of either the Chief Exec Service or, for example, the commissioning of the representative groups will be in the Community and Customer Services business plan. So it's the existing business plans.
With that, we'll move on to item 11. This is the third of the reports on the equality agenda. The report contains some very interesting, crucial statistics, and I'm sure that Ms Manson will be happy to answer any questions. And have you anything to add to the report at this stage? Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Chair. On page 131 of the main, of the report, it just makes reference to reducing the gap, reduce identity-based, and then also reducing gender pay gap. While that might be the sort of transitionary outcome, should not really be stating that we should eliminate the gap? Or when we say reduce it, are we reducing it to a level that's acceptable, or are we going to eliminate it? It's a bit semantic, obviously, but...
If I can just respond to the specific point, in terms of the assessment of the gender pay gap, it's always a statistical calculation. So, and again, going back to the original point which Councillor McKee actually asked about in relation to how it's calculated, we will always have differentials because of the pay structures that we have and how people can actually progress from the start of a pay structure through incremental progression to the top of a pay band. So we will always have notional differences, but actually the underlying attention is to remove gender pay gaps through equal pay systems. What we actually represent in terms of the statistics that we'll present to you as members is the reality of the differences where particular employee groups are, if that makes sense.
Well, it's actually a different question, so if anybody else is wanting to come in, I'm happy to. Okay, thank you, Chair. On page 142, I was reading with interest the variation of percentages of people of different ages across the region, and I noticed that 15 and 16 and 17-year-olds, by some fluke of numerology, just all seem to be exactly matching 1.3% of the population, and 2.5% of the population, which seems to tally across all the areas. All the others seem to have a sort of a expected sort of variation that you might expect when you're dealing with statistics. I was just wondering why, is that just a fluke?
I presume so.
Just take it as a statistical anomaly.
I shouldn't think it was a result of any planning, but yes, I think it will just be the way that the statistics are at the time of that particular snapshot.
Yeah, and again on just another matter, page 146. To do with national insurance number allocations to overseas nationals, and I noticed that it sort of states at the bottom that the data doesn't inform the length of stay of those who apply nor when they leave. Is it possible to actually get access to that data so we've got a better understanding of it?
We can certainly make inquiries about that and provide you with it if that's possible to get. These are national statistics from the General Registrar Office of Scotland, but we can certainly make these inquiries.
Councillor Ferguson.
Thank you. It's on page 171, Appendix 5, the number of temporary positions analysis in the council. Have we got reasons why they're temporary? And what policy are we using for that? Because single states, for example, is done and buried. It seems an inordinately high number, people who've got no job security and therefore would struggle to get, as a basic thing, as a mortgage or a loan for a car because of the nature of their contract employment.
Mr. Clarkin.
Chair, it's something we're actually conscious of, and I've worked up a procedure to review all temporary positions and their status. And we brought it to members previously in workforce establishment reports, and we're working through that. So we'll be reporting progress at the next report that comes to committee on that.
Thanks, Paul.
There's no hands up. Sorry, Councillor Ogilvie.
Yeah, I take you back to page 143 and the bottom bar chart. And it's just interesting that males outnumber women up until age 30. I just wonder what happens at the age 30 to males.
I don't know the actual answer to that, no. But again, we can certainly make some inquiries and see if there is any interpretation of that particular statistic.
Right, with that we have the recommendations. Agreed. Right. Move on to item 12, Head of Strategic Planning, Customer Services, Recruitment and Selection. This is the appointment of a Head of Strategic Planning and Customer Services. It's a crucial post, I think, just now as we have the welfare reform agenda coming through. This report sets out a job description, person specification and recruitment and selection process for the post. Mr. Tracy, have you anything to add, or are you happy to answer questions? Happy to answer questions. Members? Councillor Scobie?
Yeah, just for clarification, notwithstanding the importance that's laid out in 3.1.2, Chairman, of the post, but my understanding and just clarification that the early retirement was on the basis that, the post would not be recruited. Is that the case, or was it always that it was going to be left open? It's just that, many of the other workers or employees of the council, they've got to identify a degree of savings to qualify for the early retirement, and sometimes they're refused on that basis. So it's really to gauge that against the savings that were accrued, and that indeed it was agreed that we would refill the post.
Mr. Tracy, can you clarify that point? Was this part of our ERVS scheme, or was this under our general scheme whereby someone's got registered to?
Chair, the previous post holder, Ian Donaldson, retired in the normal way. It wasn't an early retirement as such.
So with that, we have recommendations at paragraph 2. Happy to agree that. And notice we're coming on to a suite of notice of motions. It's 12:21. I think it might be worthwhile if we break for lunch just now and then come back to the notice of motions. 1 o'clock. My understanding is always we would adjourn. I don't propose to leave the room, but adjourn, then let Councillor Prentice, I think is the chairman of the committee, convene his meeting, then adjourn that one. I think under standing orders, if it's not convened within 10 minutes, the business falls, so that's why it would be convened. If Councillor Prentice wouldn't mind convening the meeting from the seat that he's in, just for experience.
I think that's fair comment, Chair. I think in actual fact the proper procedure would be for the pension fund actually to conduct its business. The full council would have to go in abeyance, but seeing you're bigger than me, I'll agree with you.
There's an extra set of papers there. My papers in this, go and listen. These, that's it.
Right. Move on to item 13, which is a notice of motion with regard to the bedroom tax. This relates to a lot of the items that are under the welfare reform, and we actually had a paper at the 26th of February where a lot of the issues that are actually here have been actually addressed. And there is a letter received back from the actions that we took place on that day from Lord Freud that I've asked Mr Haswell to circulate to all members. As such, I would move that this business has been dealt with and that we do not withdraw delegation. Councillor Smith.
I've been cut off, Leader, sorry. I would move the opposite. I would obviously move that withdrawal of delegation should happen. I think it's a point of principle in the Labour group that if any member brings a motion to full council, then they're entitled to be heard. And the reality is not every single member of this council is on every single committee, and therefore a motion to full council is often the only way in which members can actually raise a particular issue. That said, I have to say that the mover of the motion today is actually a member of the Policy and Resources Committee, and for whatever reason didn't attend the meeting that the leader refers to on the 26th of February. I think there was a really detailed debate at that meeting, and we did agree quite a comprehensive list of recommendations, a number in relation to the bedroom tax. I think the very good letter, I have to say, that went from the leader to both the UK government and the Scottish government highlighted the fact that there are 1,800 people in this region going to be affected by the bedroom tax. It's going to remove £900,000 of benefits in this area, and we're going to see in the region of 1,400 people having their housing benefit cut by 14% and the rest by 25%. So it will have a devastating effect on a lot of families in this region. I think it is important that we do take the opportunity to debate the issue today. If we don't debate it today, then can I have at the very least an assurance that all the reports that we asked for in the recommendations that were agreed at Policy and Resources Committee will come to the subcommittee in April, and also the relevant reports will come to the special meeting of the Housing Committee that's also taking place over the next few weeks, because there's a lot of work to be done. We're a few days away from the introduction of the bedroom tax, and we really need to get our policy and our support right on this.
Second, Councillor Smith.
Councillor Scobie.
Yeah, Chair, I hope we are form at the same time. There seems to be a lot of concern as to whether I was there or not. I was not there, and I put in apologies, and indeed as others have put in their apology for today. So I was not at Policy Committee.
Yeah. Point of order, Chair. First point, which is to remove delegation.
Chair, you allowed the time, and I know at the point of order that you've got point of order, but Chair, you allowed the time on the second speaker. And I'm only hoping that you afford me the same time that you afforded the second speaker. I would say on this one that we are happy for the non-aligned group to show leadership and for others to follow. I was delighted with the Policy and Resources Committee. Chair, I hope you are going to be fair. That's what standing orders state, that you afforded time for the second speaker, and there was no cry on that one. So in that respect, I'll keep my speech to them, but you know, there is an issue here as to why it should be debated, and I hope that the Council do remove delegated powers when the principle is stated by Colin Smith. It's fair and equitable.
Councillor Maitland, is it to clarify a point in either the motion or the amendment with regard to withdrawal of delegation?
It's absolutely that. I would just like to know whether we are going to withdraw delegation or not withdraw delegation. That's what we have to do first.
Mr Haswell, I believe we have a motion and an amendment, and if you could clarify them, then we'll proceed to the vote.
Thank you, Leader. The motion is with Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor Ogilvie, and that is delegation be withdrawn. The amendment is by yourself, Leader, seconded by Councillor Ian Carruthers. That delegation is not withdrawn. Are you ready to proceed to the vote? Leader.
Amendment.
Deputy Leader.
Amendment.
Councillor Bell.
Amendment.
Councillor Blake.
Amendment.
Councillor Brodie. Is not present. Councillor Ian Carruthers. Councillor Karen Carruthers. Councillor Davidson.
Amendment.
Councillor Dempster.
Motion.
Councillor Dick.
Amendment.
Councillor Diggle. Is not present. Councillor Dryborough.
Motion.
Councillor Dykes. Councillor Ferguson. Councillor Foster. Councillor Gilroy.
Amendment.
Provost Grimm.
Amendment.
Councillor Yen.
Amendment.
Councillor Beaver.
Motion.
Councillor McCorstrey.
Motion.
Councillor McClung.
Amendment.
Councillor McComb.
Motion.
Councillor McCutcheon.
Motion.
Councillor McGregor.
Amendment.
Councillor McKee.
Motion.
Councillor Maitland.
Amendment.
Councillor Mayo.
Amendment.
Councillor Marshall. Councillor Martin.
Motion.
Councillor Nicholson.
Motion.
Councillor Nicholl.
Amendment.
Councillor Ogilvie.
Motion.
Councillor Peacock.
Motion.
Councillor Prentice.
Amendment.
Councillor Scobie.
It's obvious we're not on a rerun of the SNP conference at the weekend.
Motion. Councillor Smith.
Motion.
Councillor Stitt.
Motion.
Councillor Syme.
Motion.
Councillor Tate.
Amendment.
Councillor Stephen Thompson.
Amendment.
Councillor Ted Thompson.
Motion.
Councillor Tuckfield.
Amendment.
Councillor Witts. Councillor Wood.
Amendment.
The amendment is carried by 24 votes to 18. Delegation is therefore not withdrawn from the Policy and Resources Committee.
Move on to item 14, notice of motion, Stranraer Task Force. Councillor Tuckfield.
Thank you, Leader. I move that we do not remove delegation on this item.
Councillor McClung.
I'm quite happy to second that.
Councillor Forster.
Well, Chair, I move that we do remove delegated powers. PHE committee are spending money on Stranraer regeneration. They had the chance to approach the task force to see what funding was available. They declined for whatever reason. That's democracy. I have to accept the vote. But this task force, I was at Cairnryan when Alex Salmon came down. He made great play on the 2 R's, regeneration and roads. To date, I do not know what the task force is doing. Nobody does. This council, if it's got any more backbone at all, should be seeking clarification what they bring to Stranraer.
I take it you're moving withdrawal. Do you have a seconder? Councillor Scobie. Right. Mr. Hazel.
You have a motion and amendment. Leader, the motion is by Councillor Tuckfield, seconded by Councillor McClung, and that is that delegation be not withdrawn from the Policy and Resource, Planning, Housing and Environment Services Committee. The amendment by Councillor Forster, seconded by Councillor Scobie, is that delegation be withdrawn from the Planning, Housing and Environment Services Committee to enable the notice of motion to be discussed. Are you ready to proceed to the vote, Leader?
Yes.
Leader.
Motion.
Deputy Leader.
Motion.
Councillor Bell.
Motion.
Councillor Blake.
Motion.
Councillor Brodie.
Abstain.
Sorry, Councillor Brodie. Thank you. Councillor Ian Carruthers. Councillor Karen Carruthers.
Motion.
Councillor Davidson.
Motion.
Councillor Dempster.
Amendment.
Councillor Dick.
Motion.
Councillor Diggle is not present. Councillor Bryborough.
Amendment.
Councillor Dykes.
Motion.
Councillor Ferguson.
Motion.
Councillor Forster.
Amendment.
Councillor Gilroy.
Motion.
Provost Groom.
Motion.
Councillor Yen.
Motion.
Councillor Lever.
Amendment.
Councillor McCortrey.
Amendment.
Councillor McClung.
Motion.
Councillor McComb.
Amendment.
Councillor McCutcheon.
Amendment.
Councillor McGregor.
Motion.
Councillor McKee.
Amendment.
Councillor Maitland.
Amendment.
Councillor Mayo.
Motion.
Councillor Marshall.
Amendment.
Councillor Martin.
Amendment.
Councillor Nicholson.
Amendment.
Councillor Nicholl.
Motion.
Councillor Ogilvie.
Amendment.
Councillor Peacock.
Amendment.
Councillor Prentice.
Amendment.
Councillor Scobie.
Amendment.
Councillor Smith.
Amendment.
Councillor Stitt.
Amendment.
Councillor Syme.
Amendment.
Councillor Tate.
Motion.
Councillor Stephen Thompson.
Motion.
Councillor Ted Thompson.
Amendment.
Councillor Tuckfield.
Motion.
Councillor Witts. Councillor Wood.
Motion.
The motion is carried by 22 votes to 20 with 1 abstention.
Move on to item 15, notice of motion, cluster working review. This stands delegated to education. Councillor McGregor.
Thank you, Leader. I would move that we do not remove delegation. The administration, through the Chair and Vice Chair of Education, have already instructed the Director of Education, in discussion with the Director of Chief Executive Service, to take the final report on the cluster working review to full Council. We appreciated that this professional review affected the entire region and all 47 members, and as such had already requested it go to full Council in May.
Happy to second that.
Councillor Foster.
Yeah, Chair, I would move that we do remove delegation. The motion's quite clear and succinct in what it says. However, I'll take this opportunity just to get clarification. It saves me raising it under a point of order. On the 25th of March, I received an email from Gail, the Chair of Education, as all councillors did. In it she states, "We have an update report on the consultation tomorrow at the Education Committee, but no decision will be made until full council on the 27th of June 2013. This will involve all 47 members of the council." Now, this relates to the new schooling facilities proposed for Dumfries. What's the difference between Dumfries and clustering primary schools throughout the whole region? Should it not merit the same attention that it comes to all 47 councillors?
My understanding, both are coming. So are you moving both issues are coming to full council? With that, are you moving withdrawal of delegation? Yes?
We'll have to remove withdrawal of delegation so that I have that confirmed today, Chair. The motion is quite simple. It's not asking to debate the issue today. It's just asking that we remove delegation and agree to bring it to full council. I've heard it verbally, but if we do this, we have it minuted.
Councillor Scobie.
Yeah, Chair, because I believe that the consultation that's going on just now is a process and not an event. There's no reason to rush into this. It will not come into effect till August 2014. We're back onto this, Chair. There's some people can get the opportunity to speak and think. I'm happy to get the, to stop the excitement here, to second the removal of delegated powers.
We have a motion and amendment. Is it a point of clarity between the motion and amendment?
The clarification, I would have thought all primary schools have a role, but also have a role of pupils. Get your spelling correct in future. And less than 150, what, is that pupils or is that teaspoons? The motion isn't very clear, to be quite honest. I think we've got education by...
We are looking at withdrawal of delegation. That is the first point. If it's a point of clarification on whether you don't understand the motion or amendment, I will take that. If it's a speech on what you feel regarding the matter, I'm going to stop you. Councillor Smith.
It's a point of clarification, Chair. I mean, I hear what Councillor McGregor says. It's coming to full council and she's instructed, which is a new thing. But as a council, we agreed a very clear member officer protocol that when it came to issues, I'm asking a question. I mean, if you keep banging the table, I'll just speak longer.
Chairman, sorry,
Councillor
we
Mason.
have got...
I'm asking for a point of clarification,
No,
Chair.
you're not. You're going into a debate.
Can I remind members I am in the chair? Councillor Smith has asked for a point of clarification on the motion amendment. He is having a wee pre-say through it. If you could be quite as concise as you could be, Councillor Smith, and, so that other people don't seem to get wound up about it, please.
Thank you very much, Leader. I would have been finished 30 seconds ago, I have to say, but it's on the member officer protocol that it is going to come to full council where we'll see a final report. But we do have a member officer protocol that means that ward members should be consulted on an ongoing basis on issues in their ward. And I would have thought this is something that would be subject to that member officer protocol. But what I've seen so far is it hasn't been, and I've certainly never been consulted about what actually is going to happen in my own ward, other than what I hear on the grapevine, frankly, from parent councils. And I do think we should be consulted as members as part of that process. And I want to know if that is contained within the process going towards what we now hear is going to come to full council in June, apparently.
I would say it wasn't a clarification on whether we withdraw or not, but can we have a yes or no answer to Councillor Smith's request? Mr. Grant, is it yes that will be going through the same sort of order, or no?
If the question is, will all members have the opportunity to have, and therefore be consulted, since every single member is a local ward member in this case, since every single member has schools involved in this process, then the very fact that it's going to full council means that all members will have that opportunity.
Right, we have a motion and amendment, Mr Haswell.
The motion is by Councillor McGregor, seconded by Councillor Davidson, is that the delegation be not withdrawn from the Education Committee at present, since the report will come forward to full council. The amendment by Councillor Foster, seconded by Councillor Scobie, is that delegation be withdrawn. Leader.
Motion.
Deputy Leader.
Motion.
Councillor Bell. Motion. Councillor Blake.
Motion.
Councillor Brodie.
Motion.
Councillor Carruthers. Councillor Carruthers.
Motion.
Councillor Davidson.
Motion.
Councillor Dempster.
Amendment.
Councillor Dick.
Motion.
Councillor Diggle is not present. Councillor Dryborough.
Amendment.
Councillor Dykes.
Motion.
Councillor Ferguson.
Motion.
Councillor Foster.
Amendment.
Councillor Gilroy.
Motion.
Provost Grimm.
Motion.
Councillor Yen.
Motion.
Councillor Lever. Councillor McCautry.
Amendment.
Councillor McClung.
Motion.
Councillor McComb.
Motion.
Councillor McCutcheon. Not present. Councillor McGregor.
Motion.
Councillor McKee. Councillor Maitland.
Motion.
Councillor Mayo.
Motion.
Councillor Marshall.
Amendment.
Councillor Martin.
Amendment.
Councillor Nicholson.
As a protocol has not been implemented, amendment.
Councillor Nicholl.
Motion.
Councillor Ogilvie.
Amendment.
Councillor Peacock.
Motion.
Councillor Prentice.
Motion.
Councillor Scobie. Councillor Smith. Councillor Stitt. Councillor Syme.
Amendment.
Councillor Tate.
Motion.
Councillor Stephen Thompson.
Motion.
Councillor Ted Thompson.
Amendment.
Councillor Tuckfield. Councillor Witts. Councillor Wood.
Motion.
The motion is carried by 27 votes to 15.
Move on to item 16, notice of motion, blacklisted workers. This subject doesn't fall delegated to any committee, so I would therefore ask the mover and seconder if they would like to address the motion.
Leader,
Scobie.
Excuse me, Leader, I wasn't sure earlier that my declaration of interest actually should be item 16 and item 17, so I'll remove myself from the chamber. Thank you.
Councillor Scobie, if you'd like to continue now.
Thank you, Chair. I hope I get the same excitement out of this one as I did the others when I attempted to speak, and for you to be fair to everyone. However, Chair, I'll move on, and I would like to commend. I would like to commend the report and indeed the research that Rona Lewis has put into the motion that we have before us to do today. The further information that Rona has produced illustrates, if you like, that the behaviour and the despicable way conduct of the Consultant Association, but it also highlights companies who are prepared to buy into such information, and indeed this has affected thousands of construction workers, as the report illustrates, journalists, academics, all of which have had files on them, and then the blacklist on workers from gaining employment. In this case, as the report states, some 6 workers in Dumfries and Galloway have been affected, which is shameful on the part of those that took part in this behaviour. We now discover from the report also that the Metropolitan Police, and we will hear later today in terms of the miners and the role that the police, if indeed they were police, played in the miners' strike. So, you know, this behaviour is despicable, and it's right that we should bring this to the attention of the Council and for the Council to take action on it. There are thousands, as is highlighted in our motion, that are affected throughout the UK, and again, many of these will be in Scotland. And already the Scottish Affairs Committee have discussed this. Indeed, they have produced, or the ICO has produced a list of companies that participated in this blacklisting, and I think that I have it available if you wish that circulated, Chair. For us in Dumfries and Galloway, I think we should look for justice. We've discussed equality, fairness earlier in the business, so we should be looking for that to apply throughout the whole of Dumfries and Galloway. We should be looking for the reform bill that's going through the parliaments to reflect that we have legislation that clearly outlaws such action. Rona's report says that we can't be retrospective, but I think our report does say that we should be taking action from here on in endorsing the motion that we have before us. So in that respect, Chair, I'm happy to move, and I hope that we get the endorsement, the overall support of this Council, given the equality debate we have had earlier, that this applies throughout. So I would hope that this is unanimous throughout the Chamber in the motion, Chair. I would move.
Councillor Forster.
I'll be brief, Chair. Happy to second.
Open it up to other members. Councillor Dryborough.
Thanks very much, Leader. Can I thank, first of all, Councillor Scobie and Foster for bringing forward this motion. I was intending to do so myself, but I was waiting on further information coming back from the different parliaments that this discussion was going through. Like the mover and seconder, I am absolutely appalled by the actions of the 44 construction companies exposed in this moral wrongdoing. At the moment, it appears, as Councillor Scobie says, 6 families in Dumfries and Galloway have been limited, albeit not legally, but morally, wrongfully, by those companies. 6 families that we know of in Dumfries and Galloway, and that is only on between 5 and 10% of the ICO's list. There may be many more in Dumfries and Galloway. One has to wonder how many more, because they had trade union accredited roles, or were just raising health and safety issues on their own behalf or behalf of their work colleagues. I look at the report and support the actions in 3.5, but would ask perhaps the mover and seconder if they were prepared to amend slightly their motion to the following, and that is, in the first instance, that this Council supports the campaign by trade unions against the operation of blacklists against trade unionists. Secondly, where permitted by legislation, exclude companies involved in blacklisting of trade unions from future approved suppliers lists, which I believe is covered in 3.5 in the report anyway. Where permitted by legislation, ensure that companies included in future approved suppliers list demonstrate that they have processes in place to encourage the reporting by workers, including those who are trade union members, of workplace concerns, particularly in respect of health and safety and welfare. And finally, that this Council writes to the Scottish Government urging the inclusion of clauses in future Scottish bills covering public procurement to prevent companies involved in the blacklisting of trade unions from securing future public sector contracts. We have seen in the past few days some of those contracts, potentially the Forth Road crossing, the M74 and many others alike. And if the mover and seconder were happy to add that to their motion, I would be quite happy to go along with that.
I've got Councillor Dick and then Councillor Scobie wanting back in. Councillor Dick.
It's just to ask, in view of Councillor Dryborough's submission now, we could get time to have a look at that.
Yeah, could I be permitted, Chair? And I would have thought it was implicit, but quite happy to be explicit and accept Archie's further bullet points in support of
or the bullet points that he's illustrated, and happy to accept that into the motion.
Have had a request for an adjournment. I was wondering if that's the case, could we move on to the next one and get that photocopied? We could maybe adjourn at the one time and deal with all the business, because I think there's a couple of reports to come back, one in Dalaran and the exempt item. We could take those all at the one time. Right, so we'll wait on that coming back. Move on to item 17, notice of motion, review of cases in Scotland of miners convicted during the 1984-85 strike. This does not stand delegated to any committees, so I would ask the mover and seconder, Councillor Simon and Councillor Dempster, to address their motion.
Thanks, Leader. Late last year, the Hillsborough Inquiry reported and exposed the alleged corruption, lies and falsification of witness statements by South Yorkshire Police. It explored how officers are alleged to have perverted the course of justice to cover up their failings in relation to that tragic event. It exposed how the police are alleged to have duplicated statements, to have had statements dictated to them by senior officers, to have perverted the course of justice, and to have been responsible for a host of other unacceptable practices in relation to arrests and recording of evidence and witness statements, all amounting to misconduct in public office. Such was the seriousness of the allegations that South Yorkshire Police referred itself to the Independent Police Complaints Commission for investigation. The revelations from Hillsborough and Orgreave encouraged Lothian's MSP Neil Finlay to put forward a motion for debate in the Scottish Parliament in January. Jim Dempster and I, along with MSP for Dumfriesshire, Elaine Murray, wrote to the Chief Inspector of Dumfries and Galloway Constabulary, Pat Shearer, to request that Dumfries and Galloway Constabulary supports the call for a full independent investigation into the cases of those arrested during the miners' strikes. I bring this motion forward today for the councillors in this chamber to add their support. The 1984-85 miners' strike was without doubt one of the biggest social, economic and political events to affect areas in Dumfries and Galloway, notably coal mining areas such as Kirkconnell, Kellerholm and Sanka. Given what we know now about police activity in Yorkshire, I think there is a moral duty to look at evidence and to reflect on what happened here in Scotland. We have to ask, was it only South Yorkshire police officers who, it appears, lied and fabricated evidence? Was it only South Yorkshire police officers who, it appears, perverted the course of justice? Was it only South Yorkshire police officers who duplicated statements that led to convictions? We need to establish the truth about whether the arrests and convictions were legitimate or miscarriages of justice, as the consequences to those that were involved have been drastic since that day. Just a wee word about how things went on in these days. I had a friend who was picketing at New Cumnock. They were picketing the bus at the co-op, taking workers, strike breakers to the mines. And my friend, and with about 40 others, all got lifted and taken to Cumnock Police Station, where they were all put in cells. My friend turned round, and there was a man sitting next to him, with his pyjamas and his gown and his slippers on, with a pint of milk and his paper. And he said, "What have you been up to?" He said, "Oh, they just came and lifted me as well, son." That's the kind of things that went on. There was a big joke as well today about New Cumnock, our neighbouring village, who have suffered the same as us over the years with unemployment and the effects of the pits closing, about getting awarded the most dismal town in Scotland. And it's a big joke to some people in the national press and the TV, but I'll tell you, it's no joke for proud people that have to come through all that was caused by the actions in those years. Next year will be the 30th anniversary of the miners' strike. My home village of Kirkconnell was built in the work of the miners, and we must realise that we owe them and miners across Scotland a legacy that is open and honest. I can speak from personal experience about the miners' strikes. I myself was fortunate. I worked 25 years in open cast mining, and Jim and the rest of my friends call me a sunshine miner. But my grandfather, my father, all my uncles and aunties, my neighbours and friends all worked in the mines. And I saw all the carry-on that happened during the strike, and I hope we never ever see anything like that again. Kirkconnell became a very different place to the one that I had been born into. Many of my family and friends and those who I knew from the community struggled to find work again after the pits closed. These were extremely difficult times for miners and their families. Yet I saw a community rally together to support each other. And despite the hardship that many suffered because of the pits closing, we have all kept hold of that same community spirit. One thing we always had, we didn't have a lot of money, but one thing we always had was values. I was brought up in a community where money was short, but down the mines, the miners had to trust each other simply because their lives depended on it. But that trust spread into the community. I was brought up in a community where you went out during the day or at night, you didn't lock a door. The economic impact of the closure of the mines is still apparent to this day. But our miners have never lost their dignity, despite losing their livelihood. However, those who put themselves on picket lines and were wrongfully arrested because of that should have their names cleared in law. Unlike those in 84-85, no one in Scotland today should face charges in organised police harassment as they did then, for the only reason that they had political views that did not suit Thatcher's government. We must prove that lessons have been learned, and I urge this Council to support an independent review of all cases of miners and others convicted in Scotland, and urge our Chief Executive to write to the Scottish Government supporting the call for this review. I submit my motion to the Council.
Councillor Dempster.
Thanks, Chair. You'll know by the tone of Councillor Simon's voice it's a very emotive issue, this. As a former miner, as somebody who's taken industrial action, as somebody who's been in the picket lines, I know exactly how strongly men feel about their livelihoods and their right to work and a decent living wage. And that's one of the principles that we always stand by when we talk to members of staff, etc. And we'll all have seen some of the images on the TV relating to how some of the picket lines and picketers were dealt with by those in authority. And we've all seen, and we all know, and if you don't, take a run up to Kirkconnell, Sanker and Newcombe, see the devastation that the Thatcher government visited in communities like ours. It destroyed not only communities, Chair, but families. And I witnessed, and I was part of it, a town and a village that had economic collapse, not just economic difficulty in these times. And we are keen to ensure that no malpractice has been taken in Scotland. We don't want to send miners to their graves with some criminal record where the allegations against them have proved to be unfounded or have been fabricated. And that's why that motion is before you today, Chair, and I'm more than delighted to second the motion presented.
Councillor Scobie.
Yeah, Chair, in support of the motion, and pleased to see it coming before us, because if there has been or is any possibility of a miscarriage of justice, then I think that should be the subject of an investigation, an inquiry. We heard earlier, I've made reference to it, in the equality, and these people are entitled to the same equality, the same treatment throughout Dumfries and Galloway, many who live in Dumfries and Galloway. The support for the miners in Dumfries and Galloway at that time by the people of Dumfries and Galloway was tremendous for that whole year. The efforts that we put in, or the people of Dumfries and Galloway, indeed some were elected members, that again rendered their support to the people was tremendous. And we owe it to the miners and those who may have been wrongly convicted, wrongly treated. So in that respect, we do owe that to them, and I would hope that there is overwhelming support again for this motion in going forward and having that investigation into the maltreatment or the possible maltreatment of the miners by others. Support the motion, Chair.
Councillor Davidson.
Thank you, Leader. I think Councillor Symes really said it all and far better than I possibly could. I am very sympathetic and I do think that a move that we should support. If there have been historic injustices, then right. If it should so transpire that for some reason there were none, and I think we all know at least anecdotally that is not likely, the exercise in itself would have been valuable and important to have been done one way or another. I do believe it should be.
No other speakers? I take it. Councillor McGregor?
Chair, I completely sympathise with Councillor Symes' view and I understand the heartache that particular community and many others suffered. I'm a little bit uneasy with the language that's been used in the chamber today. We've had members who have pretty much convicted South Yorkshire Police of, and not used the word alleged. And I have to say that within the notice of motion, it does quite clearly state that Council is keen to ensure that no similar malpractice occurred. And I think we need to put alleged in there for a start to cover ourselves legally, because we do not want to condemn and make a judgment about how the police behaved. I have a slight unease with that. Beyond that, I have nothing further to say, but I do think that we've been not as careful as we should have been with language in the chamber today in relation to alleged charges against South Yorkshire.
Councillor Groom and Councillor Witt.
Well, as someone whose family was touched by the Hillsborough disaster, I can fully support John in this. I think that anyone who's been touched by this should really be supported in this case.
Councillor Witt.
Thank you. I'm supportive of the motion. And one of my earliest memories is of my father standing in the bathroom putting drops in his eyes as the consequence of his time down the mines, and I'm sure it shortened his life. So a dangerous occupation, and people who work there deserve a sympathy and support. Thank you.
Councillor Symes, could I just ask you, Pat, are you putting in your motion alleged, just if there are some that haven't been? Yep. Happy with that?
Chair, it was for clarification. It is in the second line in relation to South
Yorkshire.
Yorkshire.
The first line of the second paragraph.
It's the second paragraph.
Alleged malpractice. Happy to include that. Councillor Thompson.
It was just on that matter. I was just going to suggest the form of words, so that although it says alleged in the first line, alleged actions, maybe it might be more clear to say that Scottish cases be reviewed to ensure that correct action.
If we take out the word similar, then Council is keen to ensure that no malpractice occurred in Scotland. Happy with that? Yeah. I think that's found unanimity. Item 18, operational arrangements for common good fund subcommittees. We'll ask the rest of the members to come back to clear an interest. Item 18, operational arrangements for common good fund subcommittees. Mr. Haswell, is there anything you wish to add to your report?
Chairman, we're asking members to look at three issues. Need to get certainty around the Council's rights and liabilities in relation to common goods. Members have asked for training, and I've also had a request from Dumfries Common Good Fund Subcommittee that consideration be given to asking Scottish ministers to give Community Council reps on Common Good Fund Subcommittee voting rights. Nothing to add to the report. Chairman, quite happy to take questions.
Councillor McGregor.
Thank you, Leader. I know there's various issues across the region. Some common goods seem to work more efficiently and in a more straightforward manner than others. I would certainly say in Annandale and Eskdale, and particularly in relation to Annan Common Good and Lochbuie and Lochmaben Common Good, that the way that things operate currently is very efficient and very inclusive of our community council representatives. And I would personally be opposed to giving those representative voting rights. I think we have a very open discussion within our common good meetings. We take on board the views of those community council representatives, but at the end of the day, it is the council who operates and runs and monitors these common good subcommittees. So from that particular perspective, I would be opposed to giving voting rights to community council representatives.
Councillor Ogilvie.
It's asked several times by the Annan Common Good, the community council representatives, about the voting, and it's well recorded, so I don't understand where Gil McGregor's coming from. I would like this clarified. There's lots of questions being asked right across community councils and common goods about their representation and where it sits. So asking the question of the Scottish Government for clarification, I think would help us all, once and for all, if you like. So that part of it I'm quite happy with.
Councillor McCoftry.
Thanks, Leader. I think you're aware, as I am, that this originally came from the Dumfries Common Good Subcommittee. There has been a great deal of debate within Dumfries, principally via the Lowerburn Community Council, who have done a bit of work. One of the reasons I was keen to have training done, I don't think members have actually been trained and educated in common good practices for quite a long number of years now. Certainly not in this administration, I don't think in the last administration. And there are certain matters being raised by people out in the community as to how we administer common goods. So I see nothing wrong with members receiving education. And that education would also apply to community council members as well, some of whom have made some allegations about the running of common good funds. So on the educational side, nothing wrong with that. The request, as Councillor Ogilvie pointed out, has come from more than one community council representative on common goods for voting rights. We as a council cannot give them voting rights. All we're asking for in this particular paper is that we ask the Scottish ministers if they will grant voting rights to community councils. It would not just apply to this authority, but apply to all 32 authorities. And I see nothing wrong with the council making that step. The minister can't make a judgment that says that the community council members in Dumfries and Galloway can have the vote, but those in Glasgow or wherever can't. I don't think he can do that. So at the end of the day, we're only asking for him to make a decision. We're not making the decision here today, and I see nothing wrong with broadening the mandate to include the community councillors.
Mr. Haswell.
Can I just be, Councillor McCoxey, as always, has raised a moot point. I think the legislation would enable community councillors who are in common good fund subcommittees within Dumfries and Galloway to be given. It would not necessarily require to apply across Scotland. Many local authorities in Scotland
I would like to suggest, Chairman, we make that point that if the Minister's minded to look at it, he would probably have to look at the whole of Scotland.
I'm sorry, sir, I don't want to appear pedantic or legalistic, but the legislation allows you to ask for, in specific circumstances, non-councillors to be given the vote. It actually goes down and talks about on individual committees. So can I be clear with members, what you would be able to request legally would be for what we've said, community council representatives on common good fund subcommittees within Dumfries and Galloway. You cannot ask the minister to impose your will on other parts of Scotland.
Councillor Ritz.
Thank you, Leader. It's interesting that we should refer to inconsistencies vis-à-vis the different parts of Scotland. However, I think there's also a situation which is more problematic, I suggest, that there are inconsistencies within Dumfries and Galloway itself. For example, The membership of some common good subcommittees is dependent on the area of the ward in which elected members are. If your ward is encompassed within a particular common good area, and for Lockerbie, for example, you are entitled as an elected member to sit on that common good subcommittee. However, within Dumfries, the Common Good Fund membership for elected members is restricted to a woolly criteria, which I still don't understand, which is apparently dependent on residency within Dumfries borough or area or whatever. I have sought clarification. I'm still waiting for. I do not understand the criteria. To me, this is disenfranchising elected members. When we were elected, there were no such stipulations that you may not have to be able to serve on the committee. I have some sympathy for the terms of the recommendation. However, I would like, with your permission, to suggest an additional recommendation. And to expedite matters, I have made copies. The terms of this additional recommendation are to clarify elected members' eligibility to sit on the Common Good Fund subcommittees. That is, whether the elected members should be living in the borough where the common goods are located, or whether all elected members whose wards are within common good areas should be eligible for election to the relevant subcommittee. We need clarity on this. If one part of the area, the region is doing one thing, and another part of the region is doing something else, we're making a burach of this. Happy to pass them out.
If someone could pass those out, we'll take the next speaker, Councillor Dempster.
Thanks, Chair. I don't mind whatever it goes. I'll know about sitting in Dumfries Common Good Subcommittee anyway. But I think there are different. It's not that many weeks ago that we sat and agreed an arrangement, if you like, for common goods, and we agreed two different arrangements within the Nithsdale area, and I think that was most appropriate. In our ward, the Ward 8, we have agreed that Sanker Community Council consultees, any application for common good goes to them, they make a recommendation, and then the whole area committee decides on that recommendation. It's worked well for since 1999. I became a member, and I've seen no reason why we should change that, so I have no difficulty with that at all. And I like the 2.1 of this report, and 2.3 as well. I don't know so much about 2.2, but that's an important. What I was going to say, though, was we might get ourselves into a situation, and I don't think before time, when we establish exactly what we should and should not have done with common goods. There are allegations that common good money was misused, that properties was disposed of, and the money wasn't provided to the common good for their use or specific purpose. And I think we're still disposing of land. And indeed, land is being, how best to put this, being sold because we don't have title, or we can't demonstrate title to common good land. So it's being sold, although historically it was described as common good land. So we need to tidy all that up. And I realise that's a large piece of work, and maybe not for a lot of value in terms of land ownership. But it's important to the communities that the common good relates to. And the more we do to give the communities and community groups comfort that we are taking seriously common good and common issues, I think that's a good thing, and I look forward to a further report in due course on liabilities, etc., of common good.
Councillor Carruthers.
Thanks, Leader. I'm happy enough with the governance arrangements the way they are. Certainly in Annan Common Good, we have two representatives from the local community council. They get as much say, probably if not more, than the locally elected members that have voting rights on that. I'll be happy enough to remove 2.2 and change it to what's been asked by Councillor Witt. Add that. I'm not fussy about asking the Scottish Government to reflect and change the re-legislate.
Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you. I think Mr. Haswell said it all, and and correct me if I'm wrong, but that wouldn't affect any decisions that Annan would then make. It would be a council, for this council, if they got the powers, if they got the 2.2 back from the Scottish ministers in a positive note for that, then it would be up to the council whether they implement it and where they implement it. So it shouldn't really affect Annan. And I think, Mr. Witts, the area committee made that decision. I have no problem in clarifying, having that part and clarifying the eligibility to sit in the Common Good Fund subcommittee. No problem with that at all, because it was us that made the decision.
Councillor Gilroy.
Thank you. It's been covered in as far as I think the point probably come out at the moment, and Councillor Witts' additional recommendation would be part of 2.1 in a report back on how Council's rights, liabilities and obligations at law work with regards and common good funds. And I'm very happy with the provision of training. Good. So I'm happy to support that.
Councillor Scobie.
Yeah, Chair, and I mean, interested with the debate we've had today, and I have 2 points to make. One is to, if you take, for example, the Whithorn Common Good, and my understanding of the Whithorn Common Good is that we have 3 elected members from the ward that's set on that. Now, if they, at any occasion, have to declare an interest, as we have seen today, where at one time you were looking to see if we were left with a quorum, Chair, in the case of the Whithorn Common Good, if 3 have to declare an interest, where does that subject go in terms of my understanding, and I'm sure Mr. Haas will give the legal clarity to that it comes back to the area committee in the terms of we are only trustees of the common good. And my other point is that the 2.2 refers to giving community council representatives. I heard Mr. Hassel refer to the issue as non-elected representatives, because on the Stranraer Common Good, for instance, we have 2 community representatives, not as community councillors, but 2 of whom we are indebted with the knowledge and wisdom that they bring to the common good, not as community councillors. Indeed, we only have 1 community council. These were appointed, if you like, on their knowledge. So they are non-elected in that respect. And the terminology here only talks in community council representatives. So we could do with a clarification or the clarity on that point, so that we are not acting ultra vires in our deliberations. And the one where, in the Whithorn one, should all the members in that instance have to declare an interest, there would be nobody there. So, it's an interesting point in terms of the deliberations of the business.
Councillor Scobie's quite right. I've seen the situation with Whithorn Common Good Fund where the local members could not come to a decision because they were not quoted. The logical thing with that is to put it back to the full area committee, because in the end of the day, in terms of standing orders, it's the area committee which is the delegation. The area committee then determines that it will delegate further to a number of members, so that's perfectly within standing orders. Can I just remind members that common goods are not trusts. You are not trustees. You sit in the Common Good Fund as an elected member. The motion which came forward from Dumfries Common Good Fund specifically referred to community council representatives. I am aware of the unique circumstances in Stranraer. I would cover that by referring to non-elected representatives. So I had covered that when I hope Councillor Scobie in what I was saying. So I do understand the unique situation that Stranraer's in.
Yeah, could I just ask further clarification in terms of what Mr. Hassel said, and what I always understood was the practice, that whether it was not quoted, it was unable to do the business, it would come back to the area committee. Does that not in effect then answer the further clarity that Councillor Witts seeks, where it comes back to all the area committees? So all the area committee in that circumstance was able to deliberate on the business, and equally that would answer what I seek, someone with a more legal brain than I, in fact maybe even a more brain than I, and everybody's jumping with excitement again. I'm glad I bring some hilarity. And that always somebody says, and that must be for Tam, does it answer that question in terms of who is eligible?
I don't think so, sir, because the Dumfries Common Good Fund subcommittee has, from memory, 9 members, 10 members. So the chances of it being in quorum, I think if it were in quorum, we would cancel the meeting and have another meeting. Whithorn is in a unique circumstance again, where there are only 3 members, and that was a decision taken by the area committee. Can I remind members that what you're doing here is you would be recommending to ministers that the quorum would change because non-elected representatives would have voting rights and would therefore be part of the quorum of the subcommittee. So I just want to make that clear.
Point of clarification on that. If as suggested, a item of business has to go from a common good area committee for whatever reason, how would a community council representative with voting rights fit into that area committee structure then? They're not part of the area committee.
They wouldn't. I hear Councillor Smith raised a very valid thing there. You have already taken a decision that teachers should not have voting rights on the Education Committee. That was a conscious decision taken by this council.
Does everyone have a copy? Mr. Haswell.
Thanks, Leader. I have a motion and an amendment. The motion is by Councillor Carruthers, seconded by Councillor McGregor. The amendment is by Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor Nicholson. The motion from Councillor Carruthers is to the effect that this Council adopts recommendations 2.1 and 2.3 with the addition that any other member who's not a member of the subcommittee can attend the training if they have an interest in the matter, plus the additional recommendation or requirement that came forward from Councillor Witts. So that is the motion. It's basically items 2.1, 2.3 as slightly amended to allow all members to attend any training, plus Councillor Witts' motion about clarification of members' eligibility to sit in Common Good Fund subcommittees. The amendment by Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor Nicholson, is the paper which was handed out, which includes 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, plus the change by Councillor Yen, plus the change by Councillor Witts. Is that understood?
Councillor Crothers, you're indicating you were wanting in.
Yep. Mr. Haswell.
Could I remind all members that there is one meeting, not 2 or 3 meetings going on, please?
Mr. Haswell's right in what he's saying, but I'll just simplify it. In 2.1, agree. 2.2, remove the word and put in as per what Councillor Witts has asked for, and his change 2.2 to that, 2.3 with the addition as he noted in, and Councillor Yen has asked.
Are you ready to proceed to the vote, Leader? Leader.
Motion.
Deputy Leader.
Motion.
Councillor Bell. Councillor Blake.
Motion.
Councillor Brodie.
Amendment.
Councillor Carruthers. Sorry, Councillor Ian Carruthers.
Motion.
Councillor Karen Carruthers.
Motion.
Councillor Davidson.
Motion.
Councillor Dempster.
Amendment.
Councillor Dick.
Motion.
Councillor Dryborough.
Amendment.
Councillor Dykes.
Motion.
Councillor Ferguson.
Motion.
Councillor Forster.
Amendment.
Councillor Gilroy.
Motion.
Provost Groom. Councillor Yen.
Motion.
Councillor Lever.
Amendment.
Councillor McCawtrey.
Amendment.
Councillor McClung.
Motion.
Councillor McComb.
Amendment.
Councillor McCutcheon. Not present, thank you. Councillor McGregor.
Motion.
Councillor McKee.
Amendment.
Councillor Maitland.
Amendment.
Councillor Mail.
Motion.
Councillor Marshall.
Amendment.
Councillor Martin.
Amendment.
Councillor Nicholson. Councillor Nicholl.
Motion.
Councillor Ogilvie.
Amendment.
Councillor Peacock.
Amendment.
Councillor Prentice.
Amendment.
Councillor Scobie.
Amendment.
Councillor Smith. Councillor Stitt. Councillor Syme. Councillor Tate.
Motion.
Councillor Stephen Thompson.
Motion.
Councillor Ted Thompson.
Amendment.
Councillor Tuckfield.
Motion.
Councillor Witts. And Councillor Wood. Leader, there is inequality of voting. There are 21 votes cast for the motion and 21 votes cast for the amendment. You have a casting vote, Leader.
I'll maintain my vote and go with the motion.
The motion is therefore carried by 22 votes to 21.
Yes.
Oh, can I ask you if that's consistent with your voting at the Common Good?
I believe there wasn't a vote at the Common Good. There was a recommendation put forward. Not the only person who dances in the pinhead. Right. Notice of motion. I would propose to go back to item 16. You've had the opportunity to read the proposal from Councillor Dryborough. Councillor Dryborough.
Thanks, Chair, and I've had a word with the mover about the motion itself. And if you look at the second paragraph in the original motion, where it goes halfway down the second paragraph, it says, ask the Council to support the work of the trade unions, UCAT, Unite, GMB, in exposing the blacklist of workers in the construction industry. From that to the end of that paragraph is removed, and the 4 bullet points that I have asked for is put in place of that.
Councillor Scobie.
Yeah, Chair, as they are contained from the part, ask the Council to support the work of the trade union and so forth. That last part of the motion, it is covered by the 4 bullet points, as Archie has already said. It doesn't change the import of our motion. I'm quite happy to add this as it is on the handwriting that's very difficult to read, but it's contained in 3.5 in points 1 and 2. Chair, the import is there. I'm quite happy to accept it, and if that gets unanimous support of this Council, then happy to accept and move, Chair.
Councillor Dick.
If that's as I understand it, that's from the motion removing from ask to society and including Councillor Driver's 4 points there, I'd be quite happy to accept that.
Anyone otherwise minded? No hands up. That's great. Move on
As the vote of thanks is in order, I'd thank the Council for that, Chair. It ties in with the beginning of the meeting.
Move on to item 19, registration of private landlords. Councillor Thompson.
Just to err on the side of caution, I think I should declare an interest in this and leave.
Those who have felt that they should leave can leave, and those who feel that they can stay can stay. This report proposes an alteration to decisions in relation to the fit and proper person test for registering landlords. It is appropriate that members should take these decisions, particularly since there is a right of appeal. I think what we're asked in this report is a process matter. We're being asked to actually look that it goes to this Civic Government Licensing Committee for decision, and as such I would move the recommendations as they are.
Happy to second.
Councillor Thompson.
Could I just seek a little bit of clarification on this? What kind of considerations are taken into account to deem somebody a fit and proper person?
Mr. Haswell.
Thank you. There can be a number of issues can arise. There can be concerns expressed by the Chief Constable. There can be concerns expressed by the Housing Registrar. There can be concerns expressed by the Rent Officer. We consult fully on all of these applications, sir. Can I stress we'd only bring the ones back where it was a fit and proper issue, a fit and proper person issue, because I think it's a member decision whether someone is a fit and proper person to be registered as a landlord. In the end of the day, members take the can if they register somebody, and they shouldn't have. I wouldn't want an officer to register somebody and then the council find itself on the wrong end of a legal action.
I understand the point you're making about referring that to members to make a decision. The point I was actually trying to make was, and I think you have answered it, was how the council determines, in the first instance when an officer reviews it. And I think you've answered that point, so thank you.
Councillor Crothers.
Just for clarity, this process will be very similar to what goes to taxi licence applications.
That's exactly it, sir. We're bringing the registration into line with civic government licensing, where members are the people who determine whether somebody is a fit and proper person.
Anyone otherwise minded? Move on to item 20.
Folk come back.
Move on to item 20, funding for the Scottish National War Memorial. Councillor Groom, you want to speak?
I'm quite happy to support and move this motion. I think that next year being the 100th anniversary of the start of the First World War, it is only right and proper that we in this country recognise the sacrifices that these people have made. And I'm quite happy, as I say, to move this motion.
Councillor Dryborough.
Chair, I'm also happy if Councillor Groom's motion goes forward to second that particular thing. I think the people of Dumfries and Galloway, over the many years that they've been involved with the armed forces, have shown a great commitment to this country. I think looking at a new website, a high definition photographic record, and a book to commemorate the memorial of not just those that fell in the First World War, the Second World War, and all the other conflicts in between, is the right thing to do at this time. And therefore, I'm quite happy to second that.
Now, I received a letter with regard to this. It was asking for a contribution of up to £1,500. I take it that we are supporting the £1,500.
Chair, I think that's right. I mean, when you look at the 32 local authorities, I think they'll all be asked to put some form of funding into that particular thing. However, I wouldn't like to see maybe £100 short at the end of the day. So if there was commitment from the council, if it was another £100 or so, then that would be reserved to perhaps the chief exec.
Right, so if there's no one otherwise minded, right, agree the recommendation. Right, we're moving on to Councillor Scobie.
I just wondered, Chair, if it was possible for the council and the members to accept that with everyone's approval that we move the minutes in block.
Some of them we can, which are there for noting. Other ones we have to actually agree them today, and they're here for agreement. So it'll be the usual way that we do it. Where I can, I will try and move them on block. Right, item 21 is the minute of Employment Appeals Subcommittee of the 8th of February.
Happy to approve.
Happy to second.
Item 22, minute of Employment Appeals Subcommittee of 1st of March.
Happy to move.
Happy to second.
Item 23, minute of Pension Subcommittee of 28th of February. Councillor Gilroy, are you happy to second? Sure. Item 24, minute of Pension Subcommittee of 4th of March.
Happy to move. Happy to second.
Item 25, minute of Audit and Risk Management Committee of 8th of January.
Happy to move.
Happy to second.
Item 26, minute of DG First Management Subcommittee, Committee of 19th of February.
Happy to move.
I'll happy to second. Right, item 27, minute of licensing panel, 23rd October.
Happy to move, Chair. Second.
Minute of local review body of 15th of August.
Happy to move.
Minute of local review body 16th of January.
Pleased to be able to move them.
Happy to second. Minute of local review body 13th of February.
Happy to move.
Second.
Thank you, Councillor Coffey. And minute of local review body 13th of March.
Happy to move, Chair.
Happy to second.
I have no questions on the next items. 32 to 37 are here for noting. Can I take it 32 to 37 are noted?
Chair,
Councillor McGregor.
Chair, just on minute 37, it transpired at Education on Tuesday that there were a couple of changes that were amended at the time.
We'll have picked that up through the Education Committee, Chairman. Thank you.
Item 38, Minute of Planning Applications Committee, 28th of November. For noting. Minute of 12th of December, here for noting. Items 40 to 55 inclusive are for noting. Councillor Dryborough.
Thanks, Chair. It's in item 41, and I mentioned this yesterday at the Plan Applications Committee, at section 12 on page 370 of the book. When members adjourned, they came back. I was, in fact, back at that time as well. It's just to add the name in there.
Chairman, can I say when a minute comes for noting, it's already been through the Parent Committee. If there have been issues with the minute at the Parent Committee, these will have been addressed by the Parent Committee. They only come to the Council as a matter of courtesy for noting. They will have been amended by now.
Just on that same matter yesterday, I pointed out that I picked up the mistake that was made. I'd actually left at that point. They included me back in. When I got the e-agenda, I pointed that out to the person who sent me the e-agenda. They hadn't altered it when it came in physical form. So what's the point in sending us e-agendas where we can send back factual corrections and they're not done?
That was raised yesterday, and we'll make sure that where we can do it, we can actually incorporate. Some of these minutes were sent out before maybe the item was raised. Governance. Right, if we move on to item 56, Social Work Services Committee.
Happy move with a minor amendment that reference 5.3.1484 of 600, which was already pointed out in the earlier discussion, and Mr. Haswell has agreed to amend. Okay, that was should not have been levied. Referring to ERC charges.
Councillor Maitland, has that answered your query? Yes. Right. Item 57, for noting, Minute of Andale and Estill Area Committee. 58, Andale Estill Committee for noting. And items 59 to 81 are for noting. Councillor McCaughtrey.
Thanks, Chair. With your indulgence, under item 73, page 562 of 600, and that is the Minute and Estill Area Committee, item 8.10.2. The minute isn't quite accurate. What we agreed then was to ask for a seminar to be set up so that members could be trained, if you like, in what the third sector interface, or as it now calls itself, the third sector first, is actually doing. Because we had money given to an organisation in Priest which didn't seem to fit the third sector interface. The same thing happened at the Stewardship Area Committee last week, where money was given to the Stewardship Council of Voluntary Services, which said that they weren't doing the same work as the third sector interface. But there's been no information given to members as to how this third sector interface is going to operate. They seem to have a chairman, they've appointed a chief executive, they've got a development officer. I think we've all got an invite to go and meet them in John Swinney a week on Monday. But we don't actually know what this third sector interface does. So could there be a seminar set up for members to ensure we know what it does and to make sure there's no duplication of area committees giving money to organisations that should be going to the third sector interface?
Haswell would be happy to arrange that.
I spoke, Councillor McCaughtrey spoke with me before the meeting. I spoke with Justin Tracy. He will make the appropriate arrangements for that to happen.
As I stated earlier on, we would take item 86, which is the back of the additional reports, the ones that were sent out on the 23rd. This report is here for homologation. I would move that we accept it. No one otherwise minded. Have the papers and then we'll maybe take a short recess to read them and then come back. We also have the item with regard, which is the item 84. We would deal those ones out at the same time, and when we come back, we'll deal with the Delaran and then we'll move on to the exempt item. So, Mr. Haswell, if you could have the two reports circulated, please.
Thank you, Chairman. How long are you adjourning for, Chairman?
There is a 2-page report and a 3-page report. Would members feel 20 minutes is enough time? Councillor Scobie?
Yeah, and it's really just to look at what indeed the extra items of business or the reports are about. I have submitted information today, I think, that may relate to what I don't know. I don't know what the reports are about.
Well, the reports will be put out. We're going to adjourn to read them.
Let's see what they are first, and then, Chair, because maybe I can expedite business.
20 minutes? Right, we'll adjourn for 20 minutes. Yes. And can I remind all members, one of the items is an exempt item.
Can we not take the exempt item out of the room? Chair,
Chairman, can I remind members, I have recommended as governance officer that you should treat this as an exempt item. You will require to decide when you come back into the room if you're treating it as an exempt item or not. I've made a recommendation. Clearly members will want to take it away to read it.
Item 82A, votes motion with regard to Delaran. This stands delegated to social work services. I think we're happy to remove delegation. Anyone otherwise minded? No? Right. Councillor Driver.
Leader, can I first thank you for taking this motion. I've no doubt that it strikes a chord with many members in the chamber when a residential care home goes through the closure process. After listening to several people in the Esk Valley, and in particular in Langham, not only was there a fear that no service would be provided in the Esk Valley, but there appears to be some guilt that something was not done sooner. It's clear from the discussion that many are unaware that the council does not run residential homes similar to those that do not realise that we don't have any social housing as well. I've got no doubt that my fellow ward members are as concerned as I am about the whole issue of the residential care within the Esk Valley. I simply don't know what we can do to improve this worrying situation, and again I presume that other members are as concerned as I am when it comes to the future demographics of the region. To this end, Leader, I've tabled this motion to try and raise the profile not only of the demographics of Dumfries and Galloway, but hope that we can have a provision of residential care from now and well into the future. You'll be aware, Leader, that Cadispa has shown that there is a want for this type of care and a want for a community-run facility in the Esk Valley. To this end, Leader, I've deliberately not asked for any money, but support for those who will be affected by the closure of Delaran. And looking at the report that's just come to us here, a lot of that support is already there. I know that social services will do their best to look after the clients of the care home. I'm probably more concerned about the staff who have been given 90 days notice, and that's counting down now. Those staff again have been provided that particular support from PACE, and I want to thank that particular team for going out there and doing what they have done so far. If it wasn't for the motion, Chair, I certainly would not have known the amount of work that was actually done so far. So I want to thank those two respective departments for what they've done so far. Looking at the overall issue of residential care in the SDS Valley, I have therefore put a very open-ended motion in notes, Chair, in that the Council notes the concern shown by the people of the Esk Valley on the services provided for care for the elderly in the form of care residential homes. The Council also notes the work carried out by social services to help Delarran residential home to stay open for as long as possible, even after the Care Commission reports have raised issues with the states of bedrooms other than single occupancy. The Council also recognised the excellent service provided by the staff of Delarran for a very long time in a period of uncertainty. The Council has provided support, and I would hope that that support continues, to look and help providers open and run a facility for residential care for the elderly in the Esk Valley, especially in the form of a community-run facility. And I don't mean that we actually run that facility. I mean we provide the legal assistance to make sure that people who are actually going to run that particular, if it opens up, they understand their legal requirements under the social care legislation. And the Council, which they have already done, will assist where necessary provision of help to ensure that staff being made redundant are given every opportunity to find the work in local area. Here, looking at the report, a lot of that is already in place. I just want to make sure that this Council understands that, or should I say that the people in the Esk Valley understands that we are aware of their concerns and that we take this motion forward. Thanks, Chair.
Councillor Ogilvie.
Yeah, just to say I'm happy to second everything that Archie said. I firmly second the motion.
Over to members. Councillor Mayo.
Yeah, Chair, I have a slight amendment being typed up as we speak. I would like to speak to that before we get to that amendment, so is it okay if I carry on till it comes? One thing I would say, Archie touched on Cadispa. Cadispa has been running in the Ezzell Valley not to look at care for the elderly or Delarran, but to look at the whole valley in total. And so far, the meetings I've been at, what has come up is they are looking to set up a community trust, not which may in the end get involved in care, but to do a lot of other things in the valley, to maybe supersede organisations that are already there and a new way of working. And what was very interesting and very heartening was more than 150 people took part in this Cadispa exercise. And as I say, I was really heartened to be at the final sittings where some major decisions were made, and I thought it was a very good exercise. But as far as care is concerned, my concern on reading the motion is that it does not give the true picture of what has happened in regard to a new care home being built in Langham, nor how long the community has been battling. 25 years ago, Esdale had 3 care homes. It had Greenbank Eventide Home, St Francis Erskine Home and Delarran. Greenbank was the first to close with great public outcry, and the Franciscan Sisters were then, after 2 or 3 years, given the site, and they drew up plans to build a new home there. But strangely again, then within a few months, their order in Ireland went bankrupt, and Esdale was stunned that nearly 50 of their elderly residents were no longer living out their lives in the community. The couple that owned Delarran then drew up plans for a new build, and just before submitting the planning application, the husband, who was only 48, died very suddenly. The plans for Delarran were shelved, and the home was heading for closure when Mr. Welsh of Welcare Homes visited Langham 9 years ago and said he had been told there was a need for a modern care home in the valley. Following this interest, Esdale councillors proposed to the council that the 2 former housing sites at Townfoot Langham should be sold for the development of a new care home and also for the development of disabled and elderly housing. After gaining approval from government to that end, the sites were advertised and 2 bids were received. One was for £1 for each site, and the other was £100,000 for each site from Welcare Homes. So I think what that says is really at that stage, being advertised to build a home in the valley and disabled housing, there really was no other interest countrywide. Before the deal could be completed, however, it was discovered that a clean title did not exist on one of the sites. It took 2 years for the council to find all 11 owners of this right-of-way and get them to sign up to selling their interest. Wellcare Homes, as well as purchasing the two sites, also purchased Delarn in good faith 6 years ago for no other purpose than to keep the residents in Langham so that they would transfer to the new home and not be farmed out of the community. Finally, planning permission was granted on the Townfoot sites just over 6 years ago, and the sod was cut, but the economy had nosedived and the bank had withdrawn from agreement to fund the home. Many attempts have been made to get the project off the ground, including meeting with the local RSL, but to date all have failed, with the result that Delarn has now fallen foul of the Care Commission rules. I have spoken to the Care Commission on several occasions over the past few weeks to see if the home could be managed down with no new admissions. They would not even accept this proposal. The fact that the residents are happy, the families are happy, and the staff are held in very high esteem and have the total trust of residents and families does not seem to matter. Leader, I have no problem with the part of the motion recognising the concerns of the families and residents of Esdale and the work carried out by social work, and I certainly agree with sentiments expressed about the excellent staff, there are 24 of them, whom I have stayed in touch with and who are struggling to come to terms with this horrific situation and trying to put a brave face on their plight for the benefits of the residents. But it's the final two paragraphs in Archie's motion that I wish to change, and I'll need to now wait until that arrives. But can I say, while we talk about 13 people in Delarn, what we're actually talking about in the Esdale Valley is probably nearer 40 people that are now farmed out of there. There are well over 20 scattered all over the area. And the biggest problem we have is that the only real bus routes we have in Esdale is either to Hawick or to Carlisle. If we want to go to Annan, we've got to go to Carlisle. We want to go to Lockerbie, we've got to go to Carlisle. We want to go to Dumfries, we've got to go to Carlisle. So for elderly relatives to visit their families is becoming very difficult, and has been very difficult for those over a number of years who are out of the community anyways. So with that, Chair, the final bit I would ask to be changed. The Council, having already committed through 2013-14 budget to work with all our partners to ensure our communities have access to the care and support that people need and want, reaffirms our full support in assisting the local community and providers to develop a sustainable and viable business model for residential care for the elderly and disabled in the Esk Valley to meet the community's current and future needs.
Councillor Crothers.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I'm happy to second that amendment by Councillor Mail.
Councillor Peacock.
Thank you, Leader. I'm not putting in any amendments or counter amendments, anything like that, but I just would like to say that when we heard of the closure of Dalralm, it was noted that there was to be a meeting with the social services and the 4 local ward members to discuss that and discuss this the way forward and see what we could do to help, and as a council take that forward. Unfortunately, that meeting hasn't taken place, and I would have liked to have had that meeting before a motion was put towards us on the table. But unfortunately, we've not been able to convene that meeting for whatever reason. So that would have given ward members a better chance to discuss it amongst ourselves before tabling any motion.
Leader, I think the reason that meeting will not have taken place is the concentration will have been on the elderly in the home and the families, and I would have expected that meeting maybe in a week or 2 weeks' time, because the biggest need is, as I say, the families and the residents and the staff. So I also see this as a little premature. I would rather have had a full report about Delarn at our next social work meeting, where the full facts could then have been brought to the fore, but we are where we are.
Councillor Driver.
Thanks, Chair. I'm just reading the potential amendment to the motion. And if Councillor Mail is willing to accept that I would remove the second last paragraph in my motion and the last one, because that's already happened, and put that in place, I'm happy to put that forward.
Councillor Mail.
So what we're saying as a council, we have agreement that this statement is there, and that's what goes forward.
Councillor Smith.
clarification, could, apart from just wanting to put something in, can I ask exactly what the difference between the two statements are, practical terms? Because frankly, I don't see any statements in.
Councillor Mayo.
Well, for a start, I mean, this is not only about the elderly in Esdale, this was also about the disabled. And that's one part I've added in. Sorry? Yeah, also the part about it being sustainable. And I think I've taken it away from community-run facility. I have not mentioned the community-run facility because it might not necessarily be a community-run facility.
Councillor Driver.
Here, I'll come back to the Cadesco report. One of the top 6 action plans was to look at a community-run care facility, care residential facility, out of that action plan. And I believe there was about 110 different actions, but they've reduced that to 20-odd action plans. I think it was the 6th one to look at help for running a community-run care residential home. Now, I've got no problem whether it's run by the community or run by an individual. You know, at the end of the day, as long as there is residential care in the Esk Valley, then that's all I'm interested in. So, but if there is a community group that would like to come forward and do that, then so be it.
I think there is consensus here, and I don't think we should try and fall out over that. I think if there are opportunities to have community, or if it's private sector or whoever to actually do this, we welcome a care home if it can be provided in Langham. Chief, have you anything you wish to add?
I think it might be helpful to say that the care home issue does come at the end of a number of issues of sustainability for Langham in particular, and a number of our communities. Before we received the notice of motion, already trying to put in place a meeting with key stakeholders who might be able to fund such a facility, but also key stakeholders who were involved in the paper to create a vision and the NHS, because there are issues about the future of NHS provision on the site. And what I was now got agreement from the NHS that we would look to hold a meeting at the end of April into May when the a couple of the key players in the game can be available, with elected members, representatives of the community, to set out the whole vision for the area of which the care home is only part, which would become hospital provision, GP provision, and commissioning of local council services. That sense of place everybody talks about. So that was already in train. The hardest part has really been trying to get the NHS agreement on the future of their facilities. I think I now have that operationally. We now need to engage with the community and elected members, then back to the health board to take it forward. So that meeting will be set up. In the meantime, I will be pursuing with other individuals how we might provide options for members to consider of how we might support within current policy the provision on that site, because I think we clearly represent the idea of consistently moving our elderly across the county is not one we'd wish to take forward, but must try to do it within the policies we already have, or if not, I'll come back to you. But I'll be working on that over the next few weeks, hopefully to take some proposals to the community first, back to elected members once we're able to test them.
Councillor Mayo.
Yeah, Chair, because I live in Langham, because I've been the councillor there a long time, and even now people still look upon the local person as the councillor and not all others. There are people within the community where there have been private discussions that I can't bring out to light that to me say there is a favourable way forward. So I'm sort of hamstrung in what I can say, but the Chief has said some of it, and I really think there are positives and there are ways forward from this in the very near future.
Well, I think everyone is agreed on the way forward. Agreed? Right. As I stated earlier on, this will be the last meeting of the Council as Police and Fire Authority. Today marks the end of an era with Dumfries and Galloway Council no longer being the Police and Fire and Rescue Authority. Over the years, we have benefited from first-class joint working with colleagues in the police and the fire and rescue service. During this association, we have been fortunate to have had top-class chief constables and chief fire officers, as well as a dedicated team of frontline personnel. As well as recognising the significant emergencies that have been responded to in this time, I would also wish to applaud our efforts in community safety and prevention, with Dumfries and Galloway continuing to be one of the safest places to live in Britain. I am sure through the work of the subcommittee we have established today that we will continue to place a high priority on joint working with the police, fire and rescue service. We'll now move on to item 83 and ask that we consider adoption of a resolution to exclude the public from the meeting in terms of section 50A, paragraph 4 and paragraph 1 of part 1 of schedule 7A, the Local Government Scotland Act 1973. Agreed?